and charged with DUI. The next morning, a person was hit and killed by a vehicle along the Bishop Ford Expressway near 111th. Trooper was providing support for that crash when their vehicle was struck by a Toyota. The driver of that Toyota was sent to the hospital, then issued citations for DUI and Scott's Law. A duck hunter Saturday morning in Lake County, Indiana, came across something different: skeletal remains. The remains were found by the hunter around 7 a.m. in a marshy area near the intersection of Klein Avenue and River Drive in Griffith, Indiana. The remains were soon confirmed to be human. According to the Indiana DNR, the identity remains unknown. Richard Allen's trial will be held in Carroll County, Indiana, but the jury will be elsewhere from the state. Allen is charged with killing 14-year-old Abby Williams and Libby German near Delphi, Indiana, nearly 6 years ago. The judge has ruled the gag order on that case will be permanent. Bulls had a big second half to beat Golden State, 132-118 in Chicago. Nikola Vucevic dominated down low, pouring in 43 and grabbing 13 rebounds.
Now you just get this feeling that, it's kind of going to be your night and you just play and, play out for teammates. But I thought tonight what really made a difference, the reason why I was able to get going is because we really moved the ball. We really played aggressively offensively.
The Warriors have dropped 4 of 5. Bulls visit the Pistons on Thursday. Cubs are not done in free agency. The team signing outfielder Trey Mancini to a 2-year deal over the weekend. Fighting Illini now 3-3 in the Big Ten. They play at the Barn in Minnesota tonight. Northwestern fell to the Michigan Wolverines at Chrysler Arena, 85-78 yesterday. Wildcats are at Iowa on Wednesday. NFL Wild Card Weekend concludes with wins by the Bills, Giants, and Bengals. Siwoo Kim celebrates a victory, finishing on top of the leaderboard at the Sony Open in Hawaii. The Amex in La Quinta, California is next. News, a service of Protect and Grow with Tim Stearns. Tune in Saturdays at noon and enjoy weekly discussions to a secure retirement. A check of traffic and weather on the way next on AM 560.
Make sure that you never miss a day of Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson when you subscribe to the Chicago's Morning Answer podcast, presented by Signature Bank. Listen to the entire show each day on demand with limited commercial breaks. You can subscribe today for free at 560theanswer.com and click on podcasts or search for Chicago's Morning Answer on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
This is Ed Morrissey of HotAir.com for Town Hall. Finally cornered by the media over a scandal the White House hid before the midterms, Joe Biden claimed that he takes security seriously for classified material. Just how seriously? After the Department of Justice disclosed that Biden had kept classified documents in his garage, Biden told the media that it was every bit as safe as his Corvette. The Corvette standard had until Thursday been applied by the media. After Merrick Garland appointed a special counsel and detailed how the White House had slow-rolled the news of Biden's violations of the Espionage Act, that standard began to change. Earlier reporting had been framed almost entirely around the usual Republicans pounce narrative. Afterward, media outlets began to grudgingly note that the scandal was at least the same class as the one hyped up about Donald Trump, and that Biden and his team had hid it until well after the midterms. That's not a Corvette standard. It's a political car wreck entirely of Biden's own making. I'm Ed Morrissey.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, for those considering careers in politics and policy.
Attention entrepreneurs and growth-oriented individuals looking to learn. Multimillionaire venture capitalist John Sarasani is helping the masses with his podcast that focuses on the business community. No longer do you need to sit at work each day waiting for your cost of living to go up 3% annually. Instead, give yourself a 2,000% raise and go to work for yourself. Get all the info at 2000percentraise.com, where John shares his entertaining insight and features features successful business owners, celebrities, and investor guests like Tracy Tudor from Bravo's $1 Million Listing, Darren Rovell from ESPN and Action Sports Network, and multimillionaire bodybuilding.com founder Ryan DeLuca. Go to 2000percentraise.com, get on the email list, and find podcast links, or search for 2000% Raise on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or any major podcast platform. Follow at John Sarasani on TikTok and Instagram for some quick clips of the business lessons he teaches. New informative content every week. Visit 2000percentraise.com today and start working for yourself.
5:10. Let's get an update on the roads. We do that in our Team Hochberg Traffic Center, and it is a service of the AM 560 store. T-shirts, hoodies, more, including brands like Proft University when you go to 560theanswer.com/store. Inbound Edens is good. Kennedy is fine. No problems reported on the Ike or the Stevenson. Tri-State, though, solid because of road work northbound between 87th and LaGrange Road. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast with Ruth O'Brien.
Periods of rain and a thunderstorm today, high 49. Overcast with a passing shower or two tonight, the low 40. A brief shower tomorrow morning, otherwise mostly cloudy, high 42. Considerably cloudy on Wednesday, the high 40. I'm Ruth O'Brien on AM 560, The Answer.
We're looking at 41 at O'Hare, 37 Lakefront, 40 at Midway, and 38 at DuPage Airport. Your next news update is at 5:30. Continuous news coverage at 560theanswer.com. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy starts next on AM 560, The Answer.
Hi, it's Amy, and MyPillow is excited to bring you their biggest bedding sale ever. Get the Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98. A set of pillowcases for only $9.98. Folks, they look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, which is crucial for my busy schedule. So trust me, these sheets are ridiculously comfy. Rejuvenate your bed with a MyPillow mattress topper for as low as $99.99. They also have blankets in a variety of sizes, colors, and styles. They even have blankets for your pets. Get duvets, quilts, down comforters, body pillows, bolster pillows, and so much more, all with the biggest discounts ever. MyPillow is also extending their money-back guarantee until March. So go to MyPillow.com or call 800-489-0201. Use promo code Amy, and you'll get huge discounts on all MyPillow bedding products, including those amazing Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98 while quantities last. And don't forget to use promo code Amy for the best possible discounts available.
Who are the leaders today who really walk in the footsteps of Abraham Lincoln? There are many worthwhile debates about the causes of the American Civil War, of course, but if you accept the fact that Lincoln helped the United States in the 1800s, and you sense our nation needs help today, you need to listen to The Ashes That Still Remain by Father Thomas Coyes, now available on audible.com. You'll hear an in-depth comparison of the similarities between the Dred Scott decision and the Roe v. Wade decision. Since June of 2022 saw the overturning of Roe, it is more important than ever to learn the lessons of our past. The challenge of convincing those who can't imagine letting go of abortion rights reminds us of the tenacity of those who clung to their right to own slaves. Go to audible.com and download your version of The Ashes That Still Remain.
The Ashes That Still Remain by Father Thomas Coyes, now available at audible.com.
If I could be you,
and you could be me, for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
You depend on compressed air equipment to run your business. A failed compressor would bring your production to a screeching halt. You need a local supplier for parts and maintenance items like oil and filters. And when your business is expanding and needs the right compressed air equipment to upgrade, your local go-to source, CompressedAirAdvisors.com, can step in to save the day. Explore thousands of items online at CompressedAirAdvisors.com. Plus, they have a huge local inventory of equipment in stock and ready to go. They're a Chicago Pneumatic Elite distributor and authorized distributor for leading manufacturers like Champion, FS Curtis, PowerX, Hankinson, and more. Their staff know air compressors and are ready to assist you with a custom solution for all your air compressor needs. For a limited time, enter 560 The Answer at checkout when ordering online and receive an additional 10% off. Compressed Air Advisors Online, Incorporated in Lombard. For more info, visit CompressedAirAdvisors.com or call 877-247-2381.
2022 was anything but uneventful. The start of the new year reminds us all about the things we meant to do, but just never got around to do. And financially, there may be some really important things you've overlooked. Did you make any changes with your savings during the market volatility? Or did you just sit around hoping things would somehow work out? The moves you make right now could affect your retirement income for many years to come. So talk to Tom Fortino and the team at Alpha Wealth Group about getting 2023 off to a good start with a complimentary portfolio review. If you've saved $250,000 or more for retirement, call 630-934-1855. That's 630-934-1855, or go online to alphawealthgroup.com, alphawealthgroup.com.
Advisory services through Retirement Wealth Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Insurance and annuities offered through Alpha Wealth Group, licensed in Illinois.
Classical music lovers, you're invited to enjoy a fabulous music tour of Germany for 11 days beginning April 26th, from Berlin to Leipzig, with 6 or more performances, including the Berlin Philharmonic, led by Kirill Petrenko, the Gewandhaus Orchestra with Klaus Mekela, several operas, including Der Rosenkavalier and the Barber of Seville, and music at Johann Sebastian Bach's Church in Leipzig. The tour is fully escorted, includes great tickets for all performances, deluxe accommodations, guided tours of Berlin, Wittenberg, Eisenach, and Leipzig, some meals, complimentary travel insurance, and more. For more details, please visit TravelXInternational.com. That's TravelEXInternational.com.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Papa Nicholas Coffee. Papa Nicholas Coffee, roasted fresh daily in Batavia, Illinois.
Portions of the following show may be pre-recorded.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
What I'm saying to you this morning, my friend, even if it falls your lot to be a street sweeper, go on out and sweep streets like Michelangelo painted pictures. Sweep streets like Handel and Beethoven composed music. Sweep streets like Shakespeare wrote poetry. Sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will have to pause and say, here lived a great street sweeper who swept his job well. If you can't be a pine on the top of the hill, be a scrub in the valley, but be the best little scrub on the side of the rill. Be a bush if you can't be a tree. If you can't be a highway, just be a trail. If you can't be the sun, be a star. It isn't by size that you win or you fail. Be the best of whatever you are.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. We observe Martin Luther King's birthday today, and of course, as we do every year, some clips of the favorite offerings of King during his time as a civil rights leader, and the street sweeper speech is always a classic, that riff in particular.
Be the best of who you are.
Yeah, it was a speech he gave at a middle school in 67, I think, in Philly Middle School in 67, if I'm remembering correctly. So over the weekend, speaking of King, there was a new statue unveiled that is supposed to be a tribute to him.
Oh, it's supposed to be him hugging his wife.
Coretta Scott King.
Yeah, after he won the Nobel Peace Prize.
In 64, right. The arms and shoulders and hands of King hugging his wife, Coretta Scott King. That's what this statue is supposed to depict. It's getting mixed reviews, to be generous, because it doesn't immediately convey, even if you know that context, what the description of the sculpture is supposed to convey, does it?
No, it looks a little phallic, Dan. People that saw it were just appalled, like, oh, how could you let this happen? And I was showing various family members yesterday this statue, and if you're watching on our Matrix Home Solution, you could see the picture that it was supposed to reflect, and then the actual statue. And it looks, I don't know, you want to say it?
Well, I mean,
holding up something.
Yeah, it
or a hand on the buttocks is what I first thought.
Yeah, there's been a couple of references to interpretations that involve private parts, not shoulders and hands. But interesting piece from Seneca Scott over at Compact Mag. Coretta Scott King was Seneca Scott's first cousin. I'm sure you've seen it, she writes of the Boston sculpture. Looks more like a pair of hands hugging a beefy penis than a special moment shared by the iconic people. Okay, so there you go. That's Seneca Scott's
there you go.
Observation, not mine. The piece, a masturbatory homage to my family, homage in quotation marks. She's not super thrilled about it.
No.
Created by the organization Embrace Boston, the sculpture has inspired mad jokes on Twitter, rightly so. But for my family, it's rather insulting. Because Coretta was my first cousin, my grandfather's niece, and the daughter of my great-uncle Obadiah Scott. Martin, meaning Martin Luther King, married up. Coretta came from, and I didn't know some of the details about this, but Seneca Scott writing, Coretta came from a distinguished family with a significant legacy in her own right. There's a reason she kept the Scott name. We were a black family that owned land, lots of it. Martin knew what he was doing when he pursued her, signaling intentions to marry from the outset. After his assassination, of course, Coretta Scott King created a legacy of her own, fighting against apartheid in South Africa, among other things. Now back to the statue, Seneca Scott. $10 million were wasted to create a masturbatory metal homage to my legendary family members, one of the all-time greatest American families. Still, the Boston debacle could be a blessing in disguise by exposing the insidiousness of astroturfed woke movements that have come to dominate black America.
312 Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. You could also reach us on our text line, 64636. Type in DA, then a quick comment.
She goes on to ask, how could anyone fail to see this was a major blank move, pun intended, to bring very few, if any, tangible benefits to struggling black families? Consider this our declaration of interdependence, declares the Embrace Boston website. What does that even mean? Black families in America who need help don't care for more woke slogans. They need jobs that pay bills and keep up with food and energy costs that are rising faster than ever before for most of us. Building expensive, stupid new statues with no faces on them and tearing down others for no good reason are part of the same performative altruism and purity pageants that are mainstays of the woke left. So now Boston has a big bronze penis statue that's supposed to represent black love in its purest and most devotional form.
And Seneca,
this is no let me finish. This is no accident. The woke algorithm is racist and classist. Therefore, its programming will always produce things that harm black and poor people. This sculpture is an especially egregious example of the woke machine's callousness and vanity. Hopefully it will show more black people that these progressive just aren't in this for our benefit. Wow.
And he went on to say that, waste of money and it should be melted down, which it should be.
I maybe would have expected that from Alveda King, niece of Martin Luther King Jr. We've had on this show because of her pro-life work and her willingness to criticize the new Marxists that do nothing to advance the interests of black families in America. But wow, Seneca Scott's a former organizer with SEIU.
I didn't know that.
And yet delivers this hammering on the left about the statue and using the statue as a jumping off point to offer much stronger general commentary, as you just heard me in recounting Seneca Scott's words in this op-ed. Wow. How about that? That's a way to start off your Martin Luther King Day. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. Rich in Indian Head Park, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hey, good morning, Dave. Good morning, Amy. Why didn't they just have a statue of the two, an actual statue of Dr. King and his wife embracing each other, instead of some abstract pile of junk that it looks like? I mean, you can't even tell what it is. How does that depict their lives together?
Well, right. Yeah, I think, thanks for the call, Rich. I think that's what Seneca Scott is starting to is getting to, which is this statue is about them. It's not about my cousin Coretta Scott King and her husband Martin Luther King. Joe in Hoffman Estates.
Good morning. This is exactly why Malcolm X said that the biggest threat to black people is the white liberal. Stuff like this.
That's right. Thanks for the call, Joe. That was most famously from his letter from a Birmingham jail, talking about the white moderate being more of an enemy to the black civil rights struggle than the Ku Klux Klan. Craig, Mount Greenwood.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. Thank you for taking my call. Well, the left, they don't agree with Dr. Martin Luther King. They do just the opposite. He taught true equality and everything, and not being racist and everything, and having everybody equal. So this statue is pretty darn fitting, because it's just a mess of basically twisting up who he is and what he stood for, or anything. No face, no nothing, just a mess and everything like that. And they should be disgusted with this blasted thing.
Thanks for the call, Craig. But Seneca Scott is a he, not a she. I think I would refer to as she. Seneca Scott's a man, yes.
Well, like a meme. Somebody said if it's a meme, if you have to explain it, it didn't work. But what somebody else some rapper from Canada said, and it's not Drake, why didn't they go into the black community and show them an artist rendition of it first before they spent $10 million on it? Because everybody would have said it doesn't work for us.
I don't know what going to the black community means. I hate that phrase, like it's monolithic. 40 million people in this country have the same viewpoint. Clearly they don't. And what percentage you have to go to get the black community's opinion on something. That phrase is also something. What does that even mean? Like the Declaration of Interdependence. But maybe the family.
Yeah,
maybe
Seneca.
Start there. And just another favorite riff of King's. This was his last public address to a congregation at Mason Temple in Memphis, what he wanted from America, which is frankly something that he, again, as he did so often, transcends race and every other identitarian characteristic, and is something we could demand, we could aspire to receive today.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. And, of course, he's referring to the founding documents. Boy, does that have wide and persistent application. Dan and Amy, Chicago's Morning Answer.
Connect with Dan and Amy using the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Charlie 3, Charlie 6. 3, go ahead. 3, what's your position and status?
There's a great new award-winning book out, previously on the Amazon bestsellers list for 62 weeks in a row. It's called On Full Automatic, Surviving 13 Months in Vietnam. An amazing true story of survival by William V. Taylor Jr., a veteran awarded 3 Purple Hearts that made it out alive from one of the most active Marine combat units of the Vietnam War. For more than 50 years, Taylor held it all in, then poured his heart out to create an epic that critics are calling a classic in the genre. The stories are vivid and make you feel you're there. A book that defines the experience, similar to what Band of Brothers is to World War II. A great book for anyone interested in the psychology of the combat soldier. On Full Automatic, Surviving 13 Months in Vietnam by William V. Taylor Jr. Get it on Amazon or audiobook at audible.com.
AM 560, The Answer.
Coming up on Chicago's Morning Answer.
They just keep turning up more classified documents at the Biden compound at 538.
And later, don't take my name. We'll explain, but now into the newsroom we go. Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Amy and Dan, it is 42 degrees, and we have light rain in the area. Spokesman for Nepal's Civil Aviation Authority says a flight data recorder and a cockpit voice recorder have been retrieved from the site of a crash on a passenger plane that went down on approach to a newly opened airport in a tourist town, killing 68 of 72 on board. California bracing for another round of rain and snow in a state that has seen storms claim at least 19 lives.
Experts predict these damaging storm systems will come with a hefty price tag.
I estimate, in the hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars worth of damage.
Some areas have already received their annual rainfall in just the last 2 weeks. A University of Alabama basketball player, Darius Miles, and another man have been charged with capital murder after a fatal shooting near campus. 23-year-old Jamea Harris of Birmingham was shot and killed. The 21-year-old Miles and 20-year-old Michael Lynn Davis of Charles County, Maryland, have both been charged with capital murder. One Democrat senator is calling the discovery of classified documents in President Biden's personal possession certainly embarrassing.
It's embarrassing that you would find a small number of documents, certainly not on purpose. They don't think it's the right thing.
Appearing on NBC's Meet the Press, retiring Senator Debbie Stabenow of Michigan went on to defend the president. Utah Republican Representative Chris Stewart says those sensitive documents are clearly marked.
Every one of these documents, they have a cover sheet that's red. It says what the classification is and why it's classified. Every single page has a classification marking on it.
Congressman Jamie Raskin warns the documents will become a political football. President Biden calling on the nation to honor Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy today. He delivered remarks yesterday at Atlanta's Ebenezer Baptist Church. The death toll from weekend Russian missile strikes on an apartment complex in the southeastern Ukrainian city of Dnipro has risen to 37. 2 elderly people are seriously hurt. It all follows a fire at their home in the Chicago Little Italy neighborhood. The blaze began yesterday inside of a 2-story building in the 800 block of South Bishop. Authorities are investigating a shooting in South Suburban Park Forest. Police there say one person was shot last night and remains in critical condition. Richard Allen's trial will be held in Carroll County, Indiana. The jury will be from elsewhere in the state. Allen is charged with killing 14-year-olds Abby Williams and Libby German near Delphi, Indiana, nearly 6 years ago. Bulls beat Golden State, 132-118. Northwestern fell to the Michigan Wolverines yesterday at Chrysler Arena, 85-78. Wildcats at Iowa on Wednesday. The news service of the AM 560 store. T-shirts, hoodies, and more from your favorite AM 560 brands, including The Sean Thompson Show, when you go to 560theanswer.com/store. And a check of traffic and weather on the way next on AM 560.
The Sean Thompson Show.
Does this country even represent itself? How it used to be? Have we become so used to fascism, so used to political whores and pimps and open and notorious bribery, that a scoundrel like Kevin McCarthy would even be considered, which goes to show you just how systemic the corruption is in this country.
The Sean Thompson Show, weekday afternoons at 4 on AM 560. The Answer.
The truth is, viruses cannot be killed, and unlike bacteria, viruses are not alive. A virus is what we call a biologic entity, but we can still do something. We can destroy a virus or even keep it from being able to launch its attack on our bodies before, during, and after exposure. And this is why you need to get the kit. Our winter survival kit. Your body can protect you from these infectious bugs, but it needs a little help building up its immune defenses. And the best offense is a great defense. And that's why you need the kit. It's a perfect strategy for every infectious bug, as well as those non-living, can't-kill viruses. Our winter survival kit is a must for your home or workplace. It contains targeted nutritional components that can get the job done before, during, and after any infectious exposure. So get the kit. For details, call our Health Quest radio hotline, 800-794-1855. That's 800-794-1855. It's Health Quest Radio with me, Dr. David Kolbaba, this Saturday morning at 11.
It seems like everyone is on a complicated diet these days. Gluten-free, keto, metabolic, sugar-free. And with these diets comes special dietary protocol and food products. You can find plenty of advice on your social media sites, but you need expertise to purchase the right food items. A visit to Lil's Dietary Specialty Shop is necessary to shop the best food choices for a medical diet or health plan. Lil's Dietary Specialty Shop stocks all the hard-to-find foods you're looking for, like wheat and dairy alternatives, sugar-free baking mixes, healthy snacks, and more. There's no longer a reason to put off that diet you're supposed to be on when you have Lil's. The staff has personally researched and vetted each item in the store and has plenty of choices in stock.
Lil's Dietary Specialty Shop on 111th Street in Mount Greenwood on the south side of Chicago. Stop in and shop in person or order online at lilsdietary.com and get your items shipped right to your home. lilsdietary.com. Shop, learn, and be healthy.
5:37. Let's get an update on the roads. In our Team Hochberg Traffic Center, this update is service of the AM 560 Advantage, where membership has its privileges. And you can join today at 560theanswer.com/join. Edens and Kennedy are off on time. Ike and Stevenson is showing a little bit of a slowdown because of the wet roads. 22 in on the Ike from 390 to the old post office. Stevenson at 22 from 355 into DuSable Lakeshore Drive. Stop and go traffic northbound on the Tri-State between Harlem and the 83rd Street Toll Plaza due to ongoing heavy roadwork. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast. Periods of rain, maybe an afternoon peal of thunder, and a high near 49. Overcast, some rain showers, low 40 overnight. It's 42 right now. Next news coming up at 6. And Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So the Democrat Socialists were out in force on the Sunday talkies over the weekend, trying to aid and abet the Biden administration's damage control operation over the classified documents. And it gets increasingly difficult when you do another cursory glance of the House and you find more classified documents, as happened on Thursday night and was revealed on Saturday. 5 more classified documents, the reporting goes, found in a room adjacent to the garage where the vintage Corvette is kept, where other classified documents were inadvertently misplaced there by someone who shall remain unknown at this point.
It's just getting a little ridiculous at this point, but why are Biden's personal attorneys, who have no security clearance, searching his house rather than the FBI? Because it's his attorneys that found it. Not
right, and then they call the personal counsel, who does have security clearance, to come obtain them. Yeah, that question was asked a couple of times to a couple of different Democrat socialists on the Sunday talkies. You didn't get much of an answer. They were more focused, of course, the combination of the hosts and the guests, the PR flacks and the people they work for, more focused on trying to distinguish the Biden classified docs case from the Trump classified docs case, of course, because they have to make sure that you understand these are completely different situations that have completely different facts. And so there's a possibility that of different outcomes from these concurrent investigations. And if there are different outcomes, like, say, for example, Trump is indicted and Biden isn't, then that's totally legitimate. So they have to sort of set the table for the possibility that they're seeking. Although, again, especially now, this was my position before the revelation about Biden's the classified documents in Biden's possession. But especially now, the best thing that could happen to Trump is to be indicted. The best thing.
Yeah.
Politically, I mean, it's not enjoyable, but politically, I can't think of a better outcome from these competing investigations than Trump being indicted and Joe Biden not be. From Trump's perspective, for his political aspirations in 2024. So maybe the left, yet again, better reconsider what they think they want, but they're not over the weekend. They weren't over the weekend. Representative Dan Goldman from New York, he was on Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan is sort of like the female version of Chuck Todd. She's slightly less obnoxious, but equally self-righteous. So she brought Dan Goldman on to help do his bidding and the big guy's bidding by extension. And here's Dan Goldman explaining how the same standard is applicable here.
Oh, really? Okay.
But, of course, that standard, using that standard of analysis, you reach very different conclusions about Trump versus Biden.
You had an op-ed last year about the 45th president and the issues with classified material, and you laid out 4 factors you said prosecutors need to look at: intent to distribute, clear knowledge of importance, volume of the material, and whether or not investigators had been lied to. Is that the set of criteria you also think President Biden needs to be judged on?
It absolutely is, and I think if you go through those criteria in each one, they do not apply. We don't have any indication that President Biden knew about them. He certainly has demonstrated no intent to deceive or obstruct the government by keeping them, and that's in direct contrast to President Trump, who refused to cooperate, who refused to comply with a subpoena, and who ultimately forced the Department of Justice to execute a search warrant to retrieve the classified documents. When you look at this very clearly and you compare them, there is no comparison. Those 4 factors, I believe, apply to President Trump, and none of them apply to President Biden. And that is where we need to be centering this conversation.
It's fascinating. So then, because earlier in the interview, even though he was initially opposed to a special counsel being appointed to investigate the Biden handling of classified docs, he's now fine with it. But then, according to that analysis, that's not needed because he's already drawn the conclusion that none of the criteria he sets forth in analyzing a case like Biden's handling of classified documents, those are all non-applicable because he says so. We know nothing. Right. The only thing we know about this is what Biden's personal attorneys have told us.
Right, and his special counsel on Saturday came forward, about this fourth document finding. And this is about, do you really think that this is happening, Dan? Because the attorneys are searching the premises, his home in Delaware. So if they identify a document that has a classified marking, they stop immediately and do not review it and suspend further search of files in that box.
Well, you forget the lawyers for a second, other than to say, all we know, we don't know why this began. All we know is what they did once they came upon these classified documents. So we're not starting at the beginning of this story. Why was the search for classified documents initiated in the first place? We don't know the answer to that.
And why didn't they disclose it?
And he didn't know anything about it. So again, borrowing from Jonathan Turley, these documents keep inadvertently being placed in Biden's possession from his home to his fake think tank at the University of Penn. He doesn't know anything about it. They're in his library. Doesn't know anything about documents. Never looked at them. Doesn't know the contents of them. And again, on advice of counsel, he's not going to ask his attorneys about the contents of the documents. Is that plausible? Is that statement dispositive of the issue? Hardly.
And then NBC was reporting that Biden was upset, quote, at the sloppiness of his aides who packed the forms years ago. So, of course, the Bidens are going to blame everybody else but themselves. They're going to deny, because they're sick people. They don't care.
And then going all the way back to the actual beginning, the decision-making in terms of what documents to remove from the White House.
But he's vice president.
Who made those calls and why? And you can ask President Trump the same questions. I'm sure he will be asked the same questions at some point. But we don't know the answers to any of this. Again, all we know is what his attorneys are telling us through some statements as well as through interpretations by the D.C. press corps. We're starting in the middle of the story. And that's curious, to say the least. Jamie Raskin, who is
Congressman from Maryland.
Yeah, he is one of the more obnoxious and unapologetic conspiracy theorists in Congress. He is, I think, right there, maybe just a half a turn below Adam Schiff in terms of the reckless disregard for the facts that he has. Even though I believe he's an attorney as well, just as Schiff is. And unapologetic about it, completely unapologetic about it. Never need. So here is his review applying the standard of analysis that is appropriate, in his view, to Biden versus Trump. Because the only conversation they want to have is Biden versus Trump. And to make sure you understand, as I said again, that the Trump case and the Biden case are completely different because the attorneys, upon obtaining classified documents wrongly in Biden's possession, turn them over to the National Archive, and that sort of makes everything okay. That's what they say.
Wasn't Biden totally irresponsible with classified information? And aren't we right to wonder, to use Biden's words, quote, what data was in there that may compromise sources and methods?
Well, and I think we'll get to the bottom of all of that. I mean, that's why special counsel has been appointed by Attorney General Merrick Garland. He did the right thing there to look into it. I'm hoping that we will keep a sense of symmetry about our analysis of these situations and a sense of proportion about the underlying offenses. There's some people who are trying to compare having a government document that should no longer be in your possession to inciting a violent insurrection against the government of the United States. And those are obviously completely different things. That's apples and oranges.
Yeah, totally. Apples and oranges, because that Biden having classified documents is not a big deal because January 6th.
Right, exactly. Everything's about January 6th. He was vice president at the time. He shouldn't have them anyway.
Who is making a comparison, or who is saying that? I don't even. I'm trying to actually process the point that he's making. That some people are trying to say that this is Biden's January 6th or something like that. Who's saying that? You know who's saying that?
The left is saying it.
No, Jamie Raskin is saying that. This is just, again, whole cloth. Whole cloth. And it's an opportunity to remind you about, in their view, their terminology, the January 6th insurrection that was incited by Trump. So now we're not even talking classified docs to classified docs anymore. Jamie Raskin wants you to believe, hey, to talk about Biden's handling classified docs and to try to compare that to January 6th, I mean, that's apples and oranges. What?
Well,
January 6th, January 6th, Trump, 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 Trump. Then you don't have to talk about these particulars of the Biden case, and you don't have to contemplate questions like, why are we starting in the middle of this story?
I'm with Speaker McCarthy on this one.
What's real concerning to me is how justice is applied, and is it applied equally?
Yeah, okay.
It's not
Bill
going
and
to be applied
Skokie.
equally.
Hey, Dan and Amy, love your show. Been listening for years. You guys are awesome. This thing is so obvious to me. This is Obama pulling these purse strings right now. This is all Obama. Obama could have come out and stood up for his former vice president, and he didn't. Obviously, this is a power play to get rid of Biden. Then that's all I got. I mean, I know you thought on it.
Thanks for the call, but I know that's. I mean, we mentioned it. The idea that this could be in part the professional political skullduggerous set inside D.C. moving on Biden to sideline him before he announces he's going to run for re-election or something like that, because he clearly is not capable of running again, and he's not going to. And maybe he needs a little persuading, and so that's part of it. I mean, that's complete supposition. There's no evidence to support that claim.
But it's what I've thought the whole time. I mean, these documents are going to ruin his re-election bid, and it's planned.
Yeah.
They think through everything. They're sinister.
These documents are going to, they're also, people also give them credit for being way more competent than they actually are. They are able to get away with things for an extended period of time because they have built so much infrastructure where they protect each other. So the Russian collusion thing can persist years after it's debunked. But that's not a competence. That's infrastructure combined with willful blindness of a certain percentage of the American people. Don't overestimate their competence when it comes to this conspiracy theorizing. So this is going to sideline him any more than whatever House Republicans may unearth about the Biden Inc. operation, starting with Hunter and leading to the big guy. Who knows? I mean, you think there are a lot of votes that are determined by the handling of classified information? It's got to be more than that. It's got to be more than that to keep people's attention. It's got to be something that speaks to a deeper corruption, and we may yet get there. But so maybe there are forces at work to sideline him. Who knows? I mean, you may have Joe Biden already bought into the idea he's not going to run again, but you got to keep up appearances so you're not a lame duck prematurely.
Oh, that's true.
We don't know. I mean, it's like I said, it's possible, and the palace intrigue is always interesting fodder for speculation, but we don't know. We do know what the D.C. press corps is doing, and so I'd rather focus on what we're seeing and call that out for the purposes of explaining and highlighting and putting side by side, so people whose eyes are still covered by scales perhaps will have those scales fall at some point between now and the next election. So you heard Tapper pretending to be a journalist and press Jamie Raskin so he could invoke January 6th. You heard Margaret Brennan propping up this standard of analysis. And so, hey, we're even-handed here, and we're bumping up the facts in each case against this inviolate standard. And, of course, Trump fails the standard and Biden clears the standard because Dan Goldman says so. Okay. And then this exchange between Chuck Todd, that yapping terrier meet the press with the room temperature IQ, and Ron Johnson from Wisconsin. I don't even know why Ron Johnson bothers.
Why did he go on that show?
This is discussing the Hunter Biden investigation that Congress, well, Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley have undertaken, that House Republicans will undertake under Jim Comer, representative from Kentucky. And Chuck Todd trying to run interference on all of that with respect to Biden Inc., because that's what the Hunter investigation is fundamentally about. It's about Joe, the big guy, Mr. 10%. And the way they do this is say, well, wait a second, there's a DOJ investigation going on. So now you are going to have congressional investigations into this, you Republicans. And isn't that just so much political grandstanding? You're going to attempt to criminalize something the Department of Justice has yet to criminalize. And there's some amazing things that Chuck Todd says in this exchange based on everything we know about Hunter that's in the public domain at present, much less what is to come.
But again, 9 months of the FBI setting up the process of sabotaging Hunter Biden's computer, which we now know is authentic. Our investigation was accurate, but we were smeared. All that information was censored and suppressed, and the FBI, in their actions, impacted the election to a far greater extent anything that Russia or China ever could have hoped to accomplish. These are facts. And that's all I'm interested in. I'm interested in the truth, and I think the American public deserves the truth. And then, again, these investigations, they cover up the truth.
Senator, do you have a crime that you think Hunter Biden committed? Because I've yet to see anybody explain it is not a crime to make money off your last name.
So, Chuck, you ought to read the Marco Polo report, where they detail all kinds of potential crimes. You know, Senator Grass and I certainly
let me just stop you there. Potential.
About
potential is
about $30,000.
That's why you do investigation.
I mean, Chuck, is it a crime to be soliciting and purchasing prostitution in potentially European sex trafficking operations? Is that a crime? Because Chuck Grass and I laid out about $30,000 paid by Hunter Biden to those types of individuals over December 2018, 2019, about $30,000. This is about the same time that President Biden offered to pay about $100,000 of Hunter Biden's bills. I mean, again, that's just some information. I don't know exactly.
Here's what I don't get. All right, Senator.
It doesn't really look on the. It sounds sleazy, as you know.
I'll take you at your word that you're ethically bothered by Hunter Biden.
I mean, there's video of him waving a gun around naked with a prostitute.
Right.
Convicted drug dealer, or drug addict. I'm sorry, not supposed to be owning a weapon.
It's not a crime to make money off your name. That's the Hunter Biden story. That's the Biden Inc. story. Is that right?
Yeah.
Boy, isn't Chuck Todd, isn't he just so delightfully naive? And the important thing there, too, is just to give you a sense of exactly what they're doing to try to run interference. And also, the FBI's role in the Hunter Biden investigation, and by extension, Joe Biden, separate and distinct, that's all things Hunter Biden related, but particularly the question of whether or not Joe Biden is compromised or was illicitly trafficking in American secrets to enrich his family and by extension himself. And then now consider this when you talk about the equal application of justice with respect to the former president and the current president's handling of classified information and the FBI's role in any sort of special counsel investigation, the two competing special counsel investigations. You have all of these agencies that are suspect now because of their handling of these two individuals and their orbits with politics in mind. And this is why you have questions being offered about Merrick Garland and the judiciousness and the propriety of the approaches being taken with respect to the two. Very, very interesting. We'll have more on this, but 6:06, John Stossel on COVID and the experts.
It's now 6 a.m. WIND, Chicago.
Even Democrats want more answers from President Biden. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. After even more classified documents were found over the weekend at a Biden Delaware residence, Congressman Adam Schiff tells ABC's This Week.
I'd like to know what these documents were. I'd like to know what the IC's assessment is.
Referencing an ongoing investigation into those and other documents found in the House and in an old Biden office in Washington from his days as vice president. Here's Fox's Alexandria Hoff.
Attorney General Merrick Garland announced last week Robert Hur has been appointed special counsel to investigate the documents. And House Republicans want to know why these discoveries took so long to come out publicly. And once again, who has had access to them?
After the general counsel was appointed, we still find out that President Biden's personal attorneys are still rummaging around what essentially would be a crime scene, trying to find information to turn over. So, this whole process has been handled poorly.
That's House Oversight Committee Chairman Republican James Comer. He wants a visitor's log to the Biden home as part of their investigation. Now, President Biden will attend a breakfast to honor the late Martin Luther King Jr. on this holiday, honoring him the day after going to Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta to pay tribute to the civil rights leader.
May God bless you all, and let's go find the light. We can do this.
Rescue crews in Nepal have found the black boxes from a plane crash, the cockpit voice and data recorders. Fox's Jonathan Savage.
There were 72 people on board the Yeti Airlines flight from Kathmandu to Pokhara when it crashed shortly before landing. It's Nepal's worst air disaster in 30 years. Police, military personnel and Red Cross staff still searching for bodies.
So far, 68 of the 72 have been found. There are no confirmed reports of any survivors and no word what caused the plane to go down and crash. A mafia boss who'd been on the run as a fugitive for 30 years in Italy, captured in Sicily. Matteo Messina Denaro was already convicted in absentia in dozens of murders and faces life in prison. America's listening to Fox News.
Rain showers, 42 degrees. 6:02 is our time on AM 560, The Answer. And good morning. I'm Mike Scott. Two elderly people are seriously hurt following a fire at their home in Chicago's Little Italy neighborhood. The blaze broke out early yesterday at a two-story building in the 800 block of South Bishop. The man hospitalized in grave condition. A Chicago man is accused of murdering a teen girl. Patrick Johnson is charged with one count of murder in aid of racketeering. An indictment returned last Thursday in federal court accuses Johnson of murdering Veronica Lopez in May of 2016 for the simple purpose of maintaining and increasing his position in a street gang. Authorities investigating a shooting in South Suburban Park Forest. Police say one person was shot last night in the 100 block of Warwick, the victim taken to the hospital in critical condition. Northside voters getting a chance to hear from candidates running for mayor of Chicago. All 9 candidates took part in a forum last night at Lane Tech. Topics discussed included improving public safety, education funding, and CTA reliability. Incumbent Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
We've cleared more homicides over the last 2 years than in the previous 10 years.
The election takes place on February 28. Authorities are investigating a deadly shooting on Chicago's north side. A man riding in a vehicle last night when someone in a black sedan shot him in the 2600 block of West Fitch. There is no one in custody. Bulls beat Golden State 132-118. Nikola Vucevic with 43. Northwestern fell to the Wolverines of Michigan at Chrysler Arena 85-78. They're at Iowa next. NFL wildcard weekend concludes with wins by the Bills, Giants, and Bengals. The news, a service of Dan and Amy 24/7, around the clock, all day, every day. Listen now, Dan and Amy247.com. And a check of traffic and weather on the way next on AM 560.
Dennis Prager sees a mass exit.
California's delegation to the House, based on population, declined for the first time in California history. California was once identified with freedom. This was the place you went to be free. Now, thanks to the Democratic Party and the rest of the left, this is the place you flee to be free.
The Dennis Prager Show. Weekdays at 11, right before Charlie Kirk at 1 on AM 560. The Answer.
Do you suffer from peripheral neuropathy in your hands or feet? Is continual numbness, tingling, and burning pain stopping you from being with your family? Are you unable to play golf or other activities you used to enjoy? Are you concerned about falling, or have you already? Have you tried typical treatments of drugs and therapy and not gotten any better or even worse? There's now a treatment that's already helped thousands improve their neuropathy so that they can get their lives back. Gold Coast Chiropractic now has a cutting-edge natural solution with a 95% success rate to improve your neuropathy right here in Chicago and can be done in the comfort of your own home. A solution that addresses the underlying cause of neuropathy without taking endless drugs with serious side effects. Call today for a complimentary nerve screening in the Gold Coast or Wheaton to see if this treatment can get you your life back. Call 773-524-4164. That's 773-524-4164.
My friend had his home stolen. The crime is home title theft. It's real. It's horrendous, but it's real, and it's everywhere. Now, luckily, this was just a demo, but I saw how criminals all around the world target American homeowners, and that's why I protect my home with Home Title Lock, and you need to as well. And a thief can simply forge your signature on a legal document claiming you sold your home to them. Homeowners insurance and common identity theft programs do not protect you, but Home Title Lock does. So protect yourself. Just go to their website. It's HometitleLock.com/Sean, SEAN. Verify your home's title is still safely in your name. Then just register your address for a free, no-obligation home title report for your files. That is a $100 value, absolutely free. That's HometitleLock.com/Sean, HometitleLock.com/Sean, SEAN.
Balance of Nature, changing the world one life at a time.
I'm a physician, and I still see patients every day. And, so I tell my patients about this. And they ask me, well, what are you taking? And so I tell them, taking Balance of Nature. And they go, oh, yeah, I've heard about that. So I tell them how to get it. I give them your telephone number, 246-8751. And I tell them, call this number. And I said, they'll take care of you after that. So, I'm primary care. I really think that it works well for people to have fruits and vegetables.
Start your journey to better health with Balance of Nature right now. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go to balanceofnature.com for more information or to place your order. Shipping is always free. And don't forget to get 35% off your first order as a preferred customer by using discount code CHICAGO.
6:07. Let's get an update on the roads in our Team Hochberg Traffic Center. And the Edens and Kennedy are off and on time this morning in spite of the wet roads. The Stevenson, though, with a touch of the brakes. Ashland into the Ryan merge. 21 minutes in from 355 into DuSable Lakeshore Drive. Still northbound delays on the Tri-State. 294 jamming up a bit between the Reagan and the Eisenhower Expressway due to ramps jammed up to the outbound Ike. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast with Ruth O'Brien.
Periods of rain, even a thunderstorm today, the high 49. Overcast with a passing shower or two tonight, low 40. Brief shower tomorrow morning, otherwise mostly cloudy, high 42. Considerably cloudy Wednesday, high 40. I'm Ruth O'Brien on AM 560, The Answer.
42 at O'Hare, 42 Lakefront, 43 Midway. Your next news update is at 6:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. No COVID amnesty. No COVID amnesty.
No.
I got this email from a buddy of mine. Last weekend in Chicago, I went to Old St. Pat's for Sunday Mass. After walking through the trash-strewn West Loop to church, I found it very pleasant, very welcoming, nice start to my Sunday. Music programming was beautiful. This morning, my wife and I went to Christ the King in Dallas. I split time. Also very nice. No music program like St. Pat's, but a nice parish. The striking difference, 0 mask wearers in Dallas versus Old St. Pat's, where roughly about a third of the crowd was masked up. Roughly the same distribution of elderly, middle-aged, and young people with kids between the two churches. There were whole families at St. Pat's that came in wearing masks. Mm-hmm. It was remarkable that in the span of a week between these two Dem-run cities, there should be such an other world, other life feel. Yeah, well, that's the depths of Chicago, even when you compare it to other big blue cities like Dallas. Which is why it's always nice to do stop, look, and listen, and we will continue to. Aided and abetted by friends like John Stossel, who recently put together a video on COVID, video report on COVID and the experts, to remind us again what the outcomes were versus what the pronouncements were. For example, which states performed best during COVID, and how much of that was based on policy choices, how much of that was based on, to some extent, climate and serendipity. Here's Stossel on the U.S.
Stay at home. That is the order tonight.
Stay home. When COVID hit, experts were quick to tell us exactly what to do.
Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands.
Turns out washing our hands doesn't protect us, but being outdoors does. At the beginning of the pandemic, experts told us, stay home, close schools, don't wear masks, do wear masks, disinfect countertops.
How to clean and disinfect your home.
Now, 3 years later, we can say who was right and who was wrong.
In Florida, the pandemic is raging.
The media got a lot wrong. They repeatedly trashed Florida's governor for lifting lockdowns.
Governor DeSantis is just acting irresponsibly.
While praising New York's governor.
Governor Cuomo is doing an amazing job.
I'm wowed by what you did.
The governor's brother gushed over New York's lockdowns and sneered at Florida's reopening.
That's why states like Florida are in such dire straits.
But Florida wasn't in dire straits. Florida and New York had about the same number of deaths. And if you take age into account, Florida has more old people. Florida did better than New York. Yep. In general, 3 years later, we see little difference between states that opened up and those that didn't. In fact, the states with the fewest deaths are liberal Vermont and conservative Utah.
How about that? Right. I mean, just a reminder that things like population density, use of mass transportation, those sorts of things had impact, whereas so much else that you were told to do, like washing your hands, cleaning surfaces, had no impact.
Wash your hands and sing happy birthday to me twice. Get in there real good, talking to us like we're all in kindergarten. But the thing is, and I want somebody to bring this up at one of these mayoral forums, Mayor Lightfoot, unlike de Blasio kept 23 beaches open, never shut the pass, never shut Central Park. She shut down the entire lakefront and the bike path, 18 miles long. We couldn't walk outside. I'll never forget this one guy. She put up that snow fencing. It's the brown with metal fencing. And this guy came with pliers. I will never forget it as long as I live. It was near Diversey Harbor, near the golf course there, the driving range. And he went up because they had it where you couldn't walk on the sidewalk. You had to walk in the street. It was also, a danger with cars. He went in there and he just took it all down and then started kicking it. And then other people started coming out and started helping him. And I regret that I did not videotape that. But the anger in his face, that was like his breaking point. Enough is enough. We need to walk outside. Outside is fine.
He's a distinct minority. Distinct minority in Chicago.
Dr. Awardi said, well, what if you run past somebody on the bike path and they sneeze and ew, and there's sweat? And she literally had a visceral reaction to sweat as if it's a bad thing.
Yeah, so the larger point is outside.
Right.
And this was all over the world. There was the great video that went viral of a guy walking on a beach in Italy, and two cops start to approach him because he's violating the lockdown in Italy.
Well, what about the guy who was surfing in California?
Can I finish a story? I mean, can you just dial it down for a second?
No, I'm upset about this, and nobody's asking these questions to her.
And then he, if you remember the video, he sprints, and it becomes like It comes like Sylvester Stallone and Carl Weathers in Rocky. The Rocky movie, sprinting on the beach, and he outruns the police and so on and so forth because the police are in terrible shape, and more susceptible to COVID because of that shape. But regardless, so right, the locking down of outdoors, the locking down of golf courses, the one person or two people per a 4-person boat, and so on and so forth. All of these things, they need to be remembered because there's a significant portion of the population that not only doesn't remember them for being erroneous, these diktats, but continues to embrace beautiful lies to this very day, as evidenced by what my friends saw in the respective churches here versus Dallas.
312-642-5600, turnkey.pro. Answer line 64636. You could type in and leave us a text message on our turnkey.pro text line.
It's important to remember how things went in the various states versus how they were billed as having gone by the D.C. press corps. Talk about gaslighting. Same thing, so New York versus Florida was a big one, or any place versus Florida because DeSantis was vilified. How about Sweden, the Sweden example? So Sweden was given the Ron DeSantis treatment by the international press corps. Well, how'd Sweden do?
Around the world, the experts and the media were just as wrong.
Sweden's failed experiment, how their dangerous COVID gamble went wrong.
Reporters trashed Sweden.
Officials made the decision not to lock down, hoping it would lead to widespread immunity. But cases are surging.
Cases were surging then, deaths too. But allowing people to develop immunity did pay off. Sweden ultimately did better than its neighbors. In fact, Sweden has had fewer excess deaths than most other countries, says the OECD. Did you hear about that from American media that trashed Sweden? I didn't think so.
Mm-hmm.
I love him.
And excess deaths is actually a pretty good way to measure it. And Stossel gets into that a bit too. And sort of like Utah and Vermont, for reasons that have little to do with politicians and much more to do with things like population density, median age, climate.
And they're in shape, though.
Surprised to learn how well certain countries did when it came to excess death as compared to third world countries, as compared to industrialized countries, and how poorly they did. Stossel's riff on excess deaths.
Excess deaths, say researchers, deaths above the pre-COVID average. That's the best way to compare countries' COVID experience. It's because some countries undercount COVID.
A huge gap between reported deaths and COVID deaths.
India reported fewer than 1 million deaths, but there were probably many more because there were 5 million excess deaths in India. Former Soviet countries undercounted too.
Здесь нет вирусов никаких.
The dictator of Belarus played hockey and said his country was COVID-free.
Спорт, особенно лед, холодильник этот, антивирусное лекарство, самое настоящее.
Belarus and other former Soviet states claimed they did well. But excess death data show they did terribly. Maxim Lott maps this data and posts it at the website Maximum Truth. His COVID fudge factor reveals the communist culture of hiding the truth is alive and well. Here's the excess death data for the whole world. The dark-shaded countries like Russia, Bulgaria, and Peru did worst. Countries in gray mean there wasn't enough reliable data. Lighter places like Mongolia and Kenya did very well. I was surprised to see that Kenya and Togo and sub-Saharan Africa did well. Surprised because Africa has low vaccination rates and less high-quality medical care. Lott says it's probably because their population's so young. COVID rarely harms young people.
Another factor not taken into account. And the lockdown, the hardest, most strident lockdown countries, like, say, Australia, how'd they fare and why?
What does the data say about countries like Australia, places that impose brutal lockdowns?
For anyone who breaches quarantine, they face fines and even jail. The penalties ranging from as much as $50,000 in WA and 12 months behind bars.
Australia's rigid rules did save lives, partly because the island sealed its borders, banning almost all travel. For 2 years, there was little COVID in Australia. But once almost every Australian was vaccinated, the government lifted its lockdown. COVID cases soared. Population adjusted. Australia now has had more COVID cases than the U.S., but far fewer deaths, partly because when Australia stopped its lockdown, Omicron was circulating, and the Omicron strain is less deadly. Were Australia's strict lockdowns worth it?
You are bending my arm backwards.
The average Australian lived 2 weeks longer because the country's strict rules limited COVID spread. But would you want to deal with Australia's authoritarian lockdown to live 2 weeks longer? I wouldn't. And it turns out people in China don't want that either.
They're chanting that they don't want COVID tests. They want freedom.
Protesting's illegal in China, so these people risked their lives. Here, factory workers threw barricades at security guards in white hazmat suits. The workers have been forced to stay inside an iPhone factory for weeks to keep them safe from COVID. After the protests,
China did a U-turn and lifted most of its severe COVID rules.
What can America learn from all this?
What can we learn from all this? 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. 64636DA, turnkey.pro text line.
They're never going to admit that they're wrong, though. I think Governor Pritzker is going to come out and say, yes, you know, if I could do things differently. No,
I don't think so.
He ripped on Governor Kim Reynolds when she opened up, you know, her state, and he's like, people are dying, and if you go to Iowa, you'll run into two people, and one of the two will have COVID. He got his numbers all wrong, later apologized for that, but it's just vilifying governors who chose to do the right thing.
Which is why reports like Stossel's are important, and they continue to be, which is why it is important to continue the dialogue about what we continue to learn that has applicability retrospectively as well as prospectively, so that we can assess the policy choices that were made, the impact of those policy choices, and the propriety of pursuing those policies again if and when the next pandemic arrives. I thought the Australia point that Stasso made too was rather interesting. Oh, sure, they save some lives initially, then everybody gets vaxxed, they lift them, and everybody gets COVID because they were operating under the same assumption that everybody else was operating on per all the experts, at least the COVIDians were operating under, that if you get the vax, then you won't get COVID. And of course, that's by the boards as well. But also, too, because the Omicron variant was less lethal. And what happened with the virus, as it mutated, it became less lethal. And so the contagiousness and lethality inversely proportional. That's what many who were sidelined by the COVIDian mob were saying right from the outset. And thinking about that, what Australia did to its people, what we did to our people.
Horrible.
Although there's much less evidence that there was any benefit to the lockdowns in places like Illinois or New York.
That's why I can't laugh at the Jimmy Fallon, new variant riff that he had on his show, and people thought that was so funny. Like, screw you. God.
But even the benefits that Stossel ascribes to Australia, Australians live about 2 weeks longer, and all the advantages they have, the ability to lock down an island nation and not allow travel inside or out and so forth. Is it worth it? Because again, as we tried valiantly over the last 3 years to remind people, and here's another reminder that can't be offered enough. Life is about trade-offs. Trade-offs. When you choose one path, you are foreclosing another path. You have to assess opportunity costs, which is why we spend so much time talking about relative risk profiles and trying to divide this up a little bit based on what we knew, because a 75-year-old doesn't have the same, a 15-year-old doesn't have the same risk profile when it comes to COVID as a 75-year-old, right. But that's not the way that the COVIDians talk about this, even to this day, most of them.
I know, it's so infuriating. Ugh.
So Stossel attempts to answer his own question of what can we learn from this in the United States?
We now know that draconian lockdowns can save lives, but lockdowns hurt people financially. New York lost 400,000 jobs since the start of the pandemic. Florida gained 400,000. Also, kids in lockdown states suffered. Obesity increased in New York by 5 percentage points. Wow. Just because New York kept schools closed? Well, in Florida, where schools reopened sooner, obesity actually fell a little. Kids' education suffered an historic setback.
Scores decreased by the largest amount ever recorded.
In Sweden, which never closed its primary schools, kids suffered no learning loss. I get that we know more now. 3 years ago, terrified politicians just wanted to do something. But next pandemic, I wish they'd be a little humble, except that they don't know everything. All of us have different values about safety versus freedom. Life's better when we individuals get to make our own decisions.
312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. And, speaking of questions that are now being asked that were verboten when skeptics were asking them during the pursuit of these lockdown policies. I mean, this is remarkable. Dr. Leanna Wen, formerly the head abortionist at Planned Parenthood, op-ed in the Washington Post.
I don't know. What's she saying now?
How to stop overcounting COVID deaths and hospitalizations. She asks the question, per the CDC, the United States has experienced around 400 deaths every day. At that rate, there'd be 150,000 deaths a year. But are these Americans dying from COVID or with COVID?
Oh, thank you, Dr. Wen. Thanks.
This is supposed to be a novel question.
Yeah,
like nobody's considered this before.
A little late to the party there. But this is the same doctor who's told people to get their kids vaccinated. Then she goes on the air and says, I'm not going to get my young daughters vaccinated.
Right.
This is that same person. Okay.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So now it's okay to ask questions that were they'll let you know when it's okay to ask these sort of questions, to express some skepticism or a desire for more information, to see how much you actually know, how much faith I should put in your pronouncements and policy recommendations,
well, I remember
or policy mandates, as the case may be.
I remember, sorry for interrupting again, but I remember talking to Dr. Nzike saying, hey, listen, can you tell us, please, who's dying with COVID or from COVID? And just trying to get her to, how many people are hospitalized without COVID, but they're there and they were tested. So just to try to change their policy and how they're presenting the facts. And it took a while, but she finally got around to it. Took a year.
Elliot's outside. You're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. Hope you guys are doing well. A couple points to my comment. I'm really just tired at this point, just being gaslit for years on end. I mean, these statistics are made up. They don't make sense, at best. If you look at, the continent of Africa with very low COVID mortality rates, Well, I mean, the vaccination rate was very low there as well. They take hydroxychloroquine every Sunday for malaria reasons. India, Uttar Pradesh, high use of ivermectin. They have a lot of success there. Brazil,
I think India's success. I don't think India has nearly as much success. I think there was a significant there's significant excess deaths in India, but
if you look at specifically, I'm talking about Uttar Pradesh, where they did have prophylactic use of ivermectin along with some other drugs. They did show success there when the Delta wave was hitting pretty hard. And then for excess mortality, I mean, it's pretty much obvious at this point that these vaccines are killing people. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, we just had, 2 weeks ago now, a player have cardiac arrest, almost passed dead on the field. And when you look globally, I mean, I'm a soccer fan. This has happened all over the world. I mean, it just continues to happen. Young people are dying left and right. Sean Casten's daughter, there was a basketball player.
Well, again, we don't know. I mean, thanks for the call. Let's try to do something else. Don't overstate the case. There's no reason to. We don't know the cause of Sean Casten's daughter's death. We don't know the cause of Damar Hamlin's cardiac arrest. Right. We don't know. We don't know why that Jacksonville Jaguars player, 38 years old, died in his sleep in Indiana. This was like about the same time as Damar Hamlin's event on the field. There are questions to ask. The incidence of myocarditis. The risk of myocarditis, also other risks. There are questions to ask, but don't draw conclusions that you can't support. Just ask questions. The experts, especially when we're not in the. I'm a layman. I'm not in the medical field. Ask questions. Challenge the experts. That's the point. Don't try to impose something on them that you can't support. There's no reason to overstate the case. Some conservatives have a real tendency to do that. It's unhelpful. It's unhelpful. Why can't I ask questions? That's a very difficult proposition to argue with. I just have some questions. If it's so obvious and if the evidence is so overwhelming, then just present it to me. I mean, we mentioned the Harvard study about the vaxes last week and the possibility of that they were concluding that it does present a heightened risk of myocarditis in certain individuals. There was another release from the CDC about a safety concern. I'll read from the release. Following the availability and use of the updated bivalent COVID-19 vaccines, CDC's Vaccine Safety Data Link, a near real-time surveillance system, met the statistical criteria to prompt additional investigation and went into whether there was a safety concern for ischemic stroke in people ages 65 and older who received the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine bivalent. So they're not saying there is yet, but the data surveillance system they have was flag this as a possibility that requires more investigation. An increased risk of ischemic stroke, blood not flowing to brain tissue in people 65 and older. So this deserves more investigation. Yep. And we need to ask more questions. And if you're 65 and older and you're thinking about it, then you need to talk to your doc about the relative risks of getting the latest variant of COVID versus whatever the CDC is flagging here, at least with respect to the Pfizer-BioNTech bivalent vaccine. Ask questions, challenge the conventional, accepted, received wisdom. But just don't tell me something is conclusive that is not conclusive. That's what the COVIDians are doing. Don't be like them.
Coming up on Chicago's Morning Answer.
In our latest installment of Campus Beat, I've got a safety school for Francis Parker grads, 636.
Can't wait to hear that. But now let's head into the newsroom. Here is Mike Scott.
Light rain, 42. The death toll from a weekend Russian missile strike on an apartment building in the southeastern Ukrainian city of Dnipro has risen to 40. Italian paramilitary police this morning say they have arrested convicted mafia boss Matteo Messina Denaro at a private clinic in Palermo. Denaro was Italy's #1 fugitive. And the mafia boss was arrested after 30 years on the run. The weather catastrophe in California getting worse.
President Joe Biden approving a disaster declaration for Merced, Sacramento, and Santa Cruz as the impacts of these storms prove deadly and costly.
An additional 1 to 3 feet of snow expected today in Northern California. All 72 on board a passenger plane are feared dead after it went down in Nepal.
It was meant to be a routine 27-minute trip from Kathmandu to Pokhara, but crashing just a mile from its final destination, the new international airport in the popular hiking city of Pokhara.
Local media reports say there are no survivors among the 68 on board, along with 4 crew members on board a Yeti Airlines flight. One Democrat senator calls the discovery of classified documents in the hands of President Joe Biden embarrassing.
It's one of those moments that obviously they wish hadn't happened.
This comes as the retiring senator, Debbie Stabenow, described former President Trump's handling of sensitive material as careless as well. A Georgia football player this morning and a recruiting staff member are dead after they were involved in a car crash early Sunday. The school confirmed Devin Willock and Chandler LaCroix were killed. An initial investigation showed the vehicle slammed into 2 power poles and several trees. SpaceX celebrating another successful launch of its most powerful rocket, the Falcon Heavy, blasting off late last night from Florida's Kennedy Space Center. 2 elderly people are seriously hurt following a fire in their home in Chicago's Little Italy neighborhood yesterday. And a Chicago man is accused of murdering a teen girl. Patrick Johnson is charged with 1 count of murder in the aid of racketeering. An indictment returned last Thursday in federal court accuses Johnson of the murder of Veronica Lopez in May of 2016 for the purpose of increasing his position in a street gang. Bulls beat the Warriors 132-118. College hoops, Northwestern fell to Michigan 85-78. The news is service of the daily podcast of Chicago's Morning Answer and the Sean Thompson Show. And a check of traffic and weather is on the way next on AM 560.
Mike Gallagher sees a win in the House.
They have veto power on every bill. That has to do with the spending. Every decision that's made goes through the Powerful Rules Committee, and now you got 4 absolute rock-solid conservatives on that committee. What is it about Republicans we can't take a win?
The Mike Gallagher Show. Weekdays at 9, right before Dennis Prager at 11 on AM 560. The Answer.
A great smile can make you feel happy and confident. So when you consciously conserve your teeth, that glowing smile will show through. At Best Dental Group, Doctors Economos, Gavalis, and their staff are ready to help you create that perfect look or maintain the one you have now. Along with general dentistry, Best Dental Group is a multidisciplined practice with an orthodontist, periodontist, and prosthetic specialists on site. They use the newest breakthroughs in dental technology, such as titanium implants, Invisalign clear braces, and laser treatments. Don't let fear get in the way. They can recommend sedation to make your experience as comfortable as possible. Best Dental Group is located in historic downtown Bartlett and is a multilingual office. Call 630-830-4930. That's 630-830-4930. Or visit bestdental.org. Best Dental Group, sharing your conservative values and helping you to conserve your teeth.
You depend on compressed air equipment to run your business. A failed compressor would bring your production to a screeching halt. You need a local supplier for parts and maintenance items like oil and filters. And when your business is expanding and needs the right compressed air equipment to upgrade, your local go-to source, CompressedAirAdvisors.com, can step in to save the day. Explore thousands of items online at CompressedAirAdvisors.com. Plus, they have a huge local inventory of equipment in stock and ready to go. They're a Chicago Pneumatic Elite distributor and authorized distributor for leading manufacturers like Champion, FS Curtis, PowerX, Hankinson, and more. Their staff know air compressors and are ready to assist you with a custom solution for all your air compressor needs. For a limited time, enter 560 the answer at checkout when ordering online and receive an additional 10% off. Compressed Air Advisors Online, Incorporated in Lombard. For more info, visit compressedairadvisors.com or call 877-247-2381.
Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson here. And if you're a small business owner or make the marketing or advertising decisions for your business, then listen up.
Our annual Food for the Poor campaign is underway, and this year we're helping to raise money for children and their families in Latin America and the Caribbean who are desperate for access to food.
Millions of people, including many children, are suffering because of food insecurity. They simply don't know where they will find their next meal.
Here's how your business can be part of the solution. Become a Food for the Poor business benefactor. Just make a $2,500 tax-deductible donation to Food for the Poor, and AM 560 will give you 40 one-minute commercials to air right here on AM 560 The Answer between 5 a.m. and 8 p.m. Monday through Friday at no additional cost to you.
And through the generosity of your business, you'll be helping to feed more than 70 children for a year.
To take advantage of this deal, just call Anjanette Natkowski at 847-472-8951 or go to 560theanswer.com/food for the poor.
6:40. And let's get an update on the roads this morning. Team Hochberg Traffic Center time is the service of Staples Stores. Staples Print and Marketing is committed to quality and printing perfect every time. And now at Staples, get $10 off your document printing and marketing materials order of $50 or more. Offer ends 2/11. See staples.com/store/printing for details. Try Staples and see the difference. Eden St. Kennedy continue to be working on time right now. Wet roads on the Stevenson slowing things up 24 minutes from 355 into DuSable Lakeshore Drive. On the west side, Pulaski, both north and southbound, shut down between Wilcox and Monroe due to police activity in the area. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast. Periods of rain, maybe a peal of thunder or two this afternoon, high 49. It's 42 right now. Next news at 7. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey.
Cause they got the beat, the campus beat, the campus beat. Yeah, the campus beat.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, on this installment of Campus Beat. A number of topics to cover, but start with the passing of the great historian Paul Johnson, historian and prolific author Paul Johnson. Some selected riffs of Paul Johnson's posted over at The Spectator. On political correctness, Paul Johnson, writing in 1994, almost 3 decades ago. Today, the ideological diseases which rot free minds come from the United States, above all from its campuses, its media, and its immensely powerful political pressure groups. America has always been a country where extremism of all kind flourishes. Political correctness and compulsory moral anarchy are modern manifestations of the same propensity which hanged unfortunate old women at Salem in the 1690s, made the Civil War possible, detonated the Red Scare in 1919, and McCarthyism in the late 40s. America always subdues these extremisms in the end, but the battle is often hard-fought and bloody, isn't it? 1994. He wrote that. You know, this was back when I was on a college campus, and again, unbeknownst to so many in this country, there were these fights going on over things like speech codes on campuses. In fact, Donna Shalala, that putty-faced communist molester of dogs was the university president of Wisconsin imposing such a speech code. The censoriousness of the left was in full blossom, actually before even then, but certainly in the 90s, and a lot of people were of the belief, to the extent they were even aware of it, that this was something that was relegated to college campuses. Oh, those lefties on college campuses, all those flower kids, they've come of age and they're just having their way on the college campus. Isn't it silly, the politics on a college campus? Thank God we don't have to deal with that in the real world. How about now? So if you think about how about now, think about this. What does the trans movement look like, and what is its impact 3 decades from now if it goes largely unchecked the way what we used to call political correctness on campus was left unchecked? Now it's, neo-Jacobinism. Political correctness is way too sanitized a description of what the culture is on college campus and not on college campus in America. All institutions dominated by the left, which is most of them, isn't it? What would that look like? Don't pretend this time that you weren't warned, didn't see it coming. How could this have transpired, right? It's just all in the last 5 years. Hardly. In the last 100 years, and it's a knocking over one fence at a time. And what do they build when they seize the property? Well, they build places like Penn State. Perfect safety school for Francis Parker grads who can't get into Sex Toy University there in Evanston. Safety school of Penn State, of course.
What are they doing?
Penn State professor Sam Richards challenged straight students in a sociology class to watch gay or lesbian porn to discover a new side to their sexuality. Quoting him, "If you're straight, watch gay or lesbian porn and see how quickly you feel aroused and how you can't control that. You realize that, oh, damn, I could be sexualized by people who are like me. We all, at some level, are non-binary. We all are very much easily bisexual."
Oh, please.
I might have hit a nerve, he said.
Okay.
Did I hit a nerve? Uh-huh.
Did he require it or just suggest it? Well, the fact that he even suggested it, he should be fired, but...
Penn State, of course, when the issue is this sort of propagandizing and smut peddling, then you have universities invoke academic freedom and promotion of critical thinking and discussion. Yeah, this was that, which is exactly what Penn State did. Professor Richards purposely teaches in a manner designed to promote discussion across the spectrum of opinions. His class is not mandatory, but it's popular elective. The students choose to join Dr. Richards and his course colleagues take time to discuss opinions from many perspectives, from liberal to conservative. That's not true. And delve into topics from different viewpoints. Great conversation, challenge beliefs, encourage students to explore uncomfortable and complex topics. Of course, that's the same thing we heard at Northwestern when the professor brought out the frack saw and had it demonstrated it to the kiddies for class. It's a popular elective, sparking conversation, critical thinking, sure. Now, I don't know, if you wanted to offer an opinion on border security or something, then it's Katie barred the door. If you wanted to bring, Jordan Peterson to campus, well, then, ho. Let's pump the brakes on that academic freedom business. Yeah, how's that? Penn State. What do you think?
312-642-5600. Turnkey.pro answer line. You could also reach us on our text line, 64636. Type in DA, then a quick comment.
A more interesting thing is happening in so this is all customary, and it's been afoot for generations now, is my larger point, in case that's not obvious. So what's going on now that's different that provides any potential rays of hope. Well, one thing is DeSantis in Florida switching out a bunch of the trustees on the board of the new college in Sarasota, which is bills itself as a progressive liberal arts college, but it's a state school, and he's getting a lot of attention because essentially what they're suggesting they're attempting to do by installing new trustees is reshape the university's attitude, sort of first principles and curriculum to be more consistent with things like meritocracy, not die programming. He's using Hillsdale College, seems to me, as sort of a model, even though this is a state school, not a religious one. And among the trustees that he's appointed is our friend Chris Rufo from the Manhattan Institute. And, of course, because of Rufo's very public work, investigative work, exposing critical race theory at every level, exposing the sexualization of children in educational settings at every level, this is creating quite a bit of controversy because it's got the attention of the left, particularly with Ron DeSantis being a prospective Republican presidential candidate in 24. And it's funny, too, because there's some criticism from the so-called right as well, suggesting that Ron, like the never Trump, like bulwark types who fancy themselves libertarians, which is somewhat accurate because it usually winds up on the left, which is where they're winding up. So for Ron DeSantis to appoint these trustees and to give it with the idea of giving the college in Sarasota a attitude adjustment, he's being compared to Viktor Orban. It's like replacing one sort of illiberalism with another sort of illiberalism. Ron DeSantis trying to impose his will. Well, it's funny because the imposition of his will sounds pretty good to me. And this is from, speaking of the bulwark, Kathy Young, who's a libertarian sort and somewhat critical of Chris Rufo and Ron DeSantis here. What she rightly provides in terms of the approach that DeSantis is taking sounds pretty good to me. Sounds pretty consistent with what universities were how they originally cast themselves. Here's what the agenda for transforming the new College of Florida is. Shift the university to a classical liberal arts model as opposed to a progressive liberal arts model, which it is now. Restructure the administration mission statement, create a new core curriculum and academic master plan, abolish DIE and replace it with equality, merit, and colorblindness, restructure the academic departments to reflect the new pedagogical approach, hire new faculty with expertise in constitutionalism, free enterprise, civic virtue, family life, religious freedom, and American principles, establish a graduate school for training teachers in classical education. Yeah. That sounds pretty good to me and long overdue. So while I appreciate what a bunch of academics and some journalists like Barry Weiss are doing with this University of Austin play down in Austin, Texas, creating something out of a new institution of higher education out of whole cloth. Where you have authority to make appointments that provide policy direction to an institution, here's another instance where the governor matters. And that certainly is the case in Illinois as well, with respect to appointments of trustees to public institutions. And Ron DeSantis is seizing the day here. And this provides, to me, another model for replication in other states if and when conservative free market types are able to secure election victories at the executive level. So I'd say, this is let a thousand flowers bloom, and there are going to be many approaches and many models, some reinventing the existing, some creating something that doesn't exist. Maybe there'll be more of a non-bricks and mortar type of more offerings in that vein because of the relative cost of these colleges and universities. Maybe there'll be more people that do some sort of hybrid, take an institution the way that Mitch Daniels did at Purdue, and number one, make it more affordable, keep it on mission, like original mission. So it's just interesting to note, because if I had a kid that was looking at college right now, as we've talked about many times, and we talked about with Peyton and Eli too, I mean, Georgia Tech, and you focus on engineering like Peyton is, that could keep them on the straight and narrow, but you're still not completely insulated, even at a place like Georgia Tech. And so I just think there are not a lot of great offerings, particularly for the prices that are being charged. And so it's worth paying attention to those that are trying to sort of replicate the Hillsdale model, even in a secular setting. The small, as we talked about last week, private Catholic institutions, religious institutions, not just Catholic, that are seeing enrollment spikes because there is this hunger for a classical small L liberal education that helps to produce the well-rounded citizen. So I like what DeSantis is doing here. I like what I'm hearing from the people involved at the University of Austin. I like what I'm seeing from some of these small private liberal arts colleges that are religiously affiliated. So, there is not a turning of the tide, but there are more outlets, I think, coming online for people that, are not interested in just a degree that confers status, even if it's going to be 4 years of, propagandizing and censorship and being encouraged to watch gay porn to get in touch with the other side of your sexuality, according to some sociology professor. Dan and Amy, Chicago's Morning Answer.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
2022 was anything but uneventful. The start of the new year reminds us all about the things we meant to do, but just never got around to do. And financially, there may be some really important things you've overlooked. Did you make any changes with your savings during the market volatility? Or did you just sit around hoping things would somehow work out? The moves you make right now could affect your retirement income for many years to come. So talk to Tom Fortino and the team at Alpha Wealth Group about getting 2023 off to a good start with a complimentary portfolio review. If you've saved $250,000 or more for retirement, call 630-934-1855. That's 630-934-1855, or go online to alphawealthgroup.com, alphawealthgroup.com.
Advisory services through Retirement Wealth Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Insurance and annuities offered through Alpha Wealth Group, licensed in Illinois. The following is a paid political announcement.
Why not Willie Wilson for mayor of Chicago? The criminals won't like Willie Wilson in the mayor's office. Fighting crime is Willie Wilson's first priority. The city isn't safe. The city streets, the CTA, are not safe. Willie Wilson knows that personally.
My son was murdered. I know the anger, and I know the pain.
Willie Wilson is ready to take on the criminals. Finally, Chicago, do it right. Willie Wilson for mayor.
America First with Sebastian Gorka, today at 3, right before Sean Thompson at 4 on AM 560. The Answer.
This is Dennis Prager inviting you to join me for an extraordinary travel opportunity that will be the highlight of your year, maybe a highlight of your life. Mike Gallagher and I are headed back to Israel this October for the Stand with Israel tour. Join us along with our trusted partner, Inspiration Cruises and Tours, as we uncover important geopolitical sites and show you Israel's significance on the world stage. Visit standwithisraeltour.com to register or call 855-565-5519.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit porky, and you may even have type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Call Term Provider. Speak with Big Lou at 800-333-1750. Big Lou will find a term life policy for you even if you have type 2 diabetes, are overweight, or have high blood pressure. Term Provider has helped thousands of people like you who think they can't afford term life insurance. To buy $1 million of affordable term life for you, all you need to do is call Big Lou at 800-333-1750. Lou will make sure the scales are tipped in your favor. Call 800-333-1750. Big Lou will answer your call and work to fit you into a term life policy that you can afford. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds, too. Call 800-333-1750. 800-333-1750.
Coming to theaters January 26th, Left Behind, Rise of the Antichrist.
Was it the rapture?
Yes, I saw it happen.
After millions of people vanish and the world falls into chaos, a charismatic leader rises to become head of the United Nations.
How do we know who we can trust?
Trust God.
Starring Kevin Sorbo, Neil McDonough, and Corbin Burnson. Left Behind, Rise of the Antichrist. This film is not rated but suitable for ages 13 and up in theaters for 4 days only, beginning January 26th. Go to leftbehindmovie.com.
News, opinion, insight. This is AM 560, The Answer. WIND Chicago. Streaming at 560theanswer.com. On the AM 560 mobile app. Tune in, iHeart, and on Odyssey.
House Republicans want to see visitor logs. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. To the Biden residence after even more classified documents from the president's days as vice president were found over the weekend. GOP Congressman Chris Stewart tells CBS Face the Nation.
For those who think that, well, the president didn't realize that he had those in his possession, it just is nonsense. Of course he knew that he had them. They're so obvious.
Fox's Peter Ducey's at the White House.
Even the most reliable Biden allies, Democrats in Congress, are saying they want spy agencies to fill them in about how bad this might be.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams went to the Texas border over the weekend demanding federal assistance after months of buses full of migrants who came to the U.S. illegally were sent to his city and others.
El Paso does not deserve this. Chicago, Washington, Houston, Los Angeles, New York.
Republicans criticized President Biden's trip to El Paso a week ago as a photo op amid a record surge of illegal immigration. They've found the black boxes in Nepal, cockpit, voice, and data recorders. They hope it can explain why a plane crashed with 72 passengers on board and crew. 69 bodies found so far, no confirmed reports of survivors.
The disaster happened as a flight from the capital of Kathmandu approached the city of Pokhara. The twin-engine propeller plane crashed into a gorge at the end of this 30-minute flight.
Fox's Trey Yinks. The FAA is investigating a close call at New York's JFK Airport Friday.
Delta 1943, cancel takeoff clearance.
That command as the plane was speeding up.
Delta 1943, cancel takeoff clearance.
That air traffic controller may have averted a disaster. In that audio from live ATC, the Delta plane stopped, did not take off. Stopped about 1,000 feet from an American Airlines plane crossing paths from an adjacent runway on its takeoff. What caused the jets to be on a collision course unclear at this point. A legend of the big screen has died. Gina Lollobrigida, an Italian movie star who rose to international and Hollywood fame in the 1950s and 60s. She was 95. America's listening to Fox.
Light rain showers and 42 degrees at 7:02 on AM 560. The Answer. Good morning. I'm Mike Scott. 2 elderly people are seriously hurt following a fire at their home in Chicago's Little Italy neighborhood. The blaze began yesterday in a 2-story building. One man hospitalized in grave condition, a woman in serious to critical condition. A Chicago man is accused of murdering a teen girl. Patrick Johnson is charged with 1 count of murder in aid of racketeering. The indictment returned last week in federal court accuses Johnson of the murder of Veronica Lopez in May of 2016 for the purpose of increasing his position in a street gang. A wild police chase in Waukesha, Wisconsin ends in an apartment building. Started very early yesterday morning when police tried to pull over a driver from Chicago. The driver sped away. Police followed that car until it slammed into the Spring City apartment building. 3 inside the car have been hospitalized. Northside voters getting the chance to hear from candidates running for mayor of Chicago. All 9 candidates took part in a forum last night at Lane Tech High School, including Brandon Johnson.
It is disappointing to be on the stage with a bunch of individuals who claim to be Democrats, and they're growing one of the largest budgets in the entire budget, which is the police budget.
The election takes place February 28. Cook County Medical Examiner's Office reveals the identity of the worker who died last week after being trapped in a building that collapsed in the Bronzeville neighborhood. Pedro Mateos was found trapped under debris following the Thursday collapse. Bulls beat the Warriors 132-118 last night. Cubs are done in free agency, signing outfielder Trey Mancini. College hoops, Northwestern fell to Michigan at Chrysler Arena 85-78. The News is a service of Salem Surround, a local digital marketing agency providing high-performing digital solutions to surround your target audience. And a check of traffic and weather on the way next on AM 560.
Charlie Kirk explains the consequences.
You are now seeing several uniparty candidates say, I'm going to go caucus with Democrats. By having a uniparty, it would basically effectively destroy the United States House of Representatives being in the Republican direction.
The Charlie Kirk Show. Afternoons at 1, right before Sebastian Gorka at 3 on AM 560. The Answer.
My friend had his home stolen. The crime is home title theft. It's real. It's horrendous, but it's real, and it's everywhere. Now, luckily, this was just a demo, but I saw how criminals all around the world target American homeowners, and that's why I protect my home with Home Title Lock, and you need to as well. And a thief can simply forge your signature on a legal document claiming you sold your home to them. Homeowners insurance and common identity theft programs do not protect you, but Home Title Lock does. So protect yourself. Just go to their website. It's HometitleLock.com/Sean, SEAN. Verify your home's title is still safely in your name. Then just register your address for a free, no-obligation home title report for your files. That is a $100 value, absolutely free. That's HometitleLock.com/Sean, HometitleLock.com/Sean, SEAN.
Hi, Amy Jacobson here, and I just want to say thank you to everyone who participated in our Food for the Poor campaign. Because of your generosity, guess what? We're able to feed 5,000 kids and counting in Latin America and the Caribbean. Now, these are children and families that simply would not have food without your generous donations. But just because the holiday season is over, that doesn't mean the need has gone away. So if you haven't already, you can still make a donation by visiting 560theanswer.com/food for the poor. And listen up, if you're a business owner, let's do that business benefactor program. What it is a one-time donation of $2,500, and we will give you 40 one-minute commercials. It's the best way to elevate your business. It is the best deal in all of Chicagoland radio. Here's what you do. Call Anjanette Natowski. Her number is 847-472-8951. That's 847-472-8951. Or visit 560theanswer.com/food for the poor.
The following is a paid political announcement.
Why not Willie Wilson for mayor of Chicago? The criminals won't like Willie Wilson in the mayor's office. Fighting crime is Willie Wilson's first priority. The city isn't safe. The city streets, the CTA, are not safe. Willie Wilson knows that personally.
My son was murdered. I know the anger, and I know the pain.
Willie Wilson is ready to take on the criminals. Finally, Chicago, do it right. Willie Wilson for mayor.
7:07. Let's get a check of the roads. Team Hochberg Traffic Center Time is the service of the AM 560 mobile app. You can text the word app to 64636. Northwest side, Grand Avenue westbound between Cicero and Armitage closed due to an accident. Des Plaines, an accident reported. Toohey and Mount Prospect Road. DuSable Lakeshore Drive closed southbound due to an accident. You have solid traffic between Soldier Field and 18. Stevenson, 22 minutes from 355 into DuSable Lakeshore Drive. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast with Ruth O'Brien.
Periods of rain and a thunderstorm today, high 49. Overcast with a passing shower or two tonight, the low 40. A brief shower tomorrow morning, otherwise mostly cloudy, high 42. Considerably cloudy on Wednesday, the high 40. I'm Ruth O'Brien on AM 560, The Answer.
43 at O'Hare, 38 Lakefront. Next news, 7:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Independent journalist Matt Taibbi, a man generally of the left. Remember, he wrote a book about Trump being a clown. But he's been one of the chief conduits for making Twitter documents public. Elon Musk's Twitter files that he is running through people like Taibbi and Barry Weiss and Michael Schellenberger to get out into the public domain this public-private censorship combine that exists between big government and big tech. Taibbi was on with Maria Bartiromo yesterday, summarizing his perspective on all of the Twitter documents that have been released to date.
I think the major revelation of the Twitter files so far is that we've discovered an elaborate bureaucracy of what you might call public-private censorship. Basically, companies like Twitter had a system by which they received tens of thousands of requests for action on various accounts, typically through the DHS and the FBI, but these requests were coming from basically every agency in the government. We've seen them from the HHS, from the Treasury, from the DOD, even from the CIA, and they will send basically launch on those accounts, and in many cases, Twitter is complying. Yeah, it's funny, as I was reading these tens of thousands of emails, we would put them into different buckets. So this might be a First Amendment particular issue over here. This might be a revolving door question over here. But then over here we had a bucket called improper asks. And there you might see something like the FBI asking for user identification or IP addresses or handles, and in some cases, even things like geolocation of individual accounts. Now, the problem is we don't always see the other side of these transactions, but we can definitely see the government asking for these things. So these are things that they're not entitled to, usually without a subpoena or without a warrant, but they're asking for them anyway because they have a very close relationship with these companies. And in some cases, we're not talking about a few accounts. We're talking about thousands of accounts where they're asking for handles or IP addresses or other information.
Unbelievable.
And that, I think, is very dangerous.
For more on this, pleased to be joined by Lieutenant Colonel Jim Carafano, VP of the Catherine and Shelby Cullum Davis Institute for International Studies at the Heritage Foundation, author of Brutal War, Jungle Fighting in Papua New Guinea, 1942. Jim, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, in principle, there's nothing wrong with public-private sector cooperation. If you go back to World War II, for example, there were many instances where universities and industry had all kinds of conversations and cooperation with the U.S. government in pursuit of winning World War II. But we saw in the 1960s, for example, during the height of the anti-war and civil rights movement, that there were many times where government either actually crossed a line or did activities similar to this, which were conducting all kinds of queries on public safety or public interest, and there were no guardrails, there was no ruling, and there was no oversight. And this resulted in something called the Church Committee, which revealed all kinds of, in some cases, crimes, but in a lot of cases, the abuses of government should not be doing these things.
Well, there's something.
What we see here is actually far greater than anything we saw in the 1970s. So public-private cooperation is fine as long as there are guard rules and oversight and protection of civil liberties and constitutional rights. And in this case, not only does it seem that those were not put in place, but they were actually disguised and ignored so people wouldn't know that these activities existed, so people couldn't have a debate about what kind of activities to put in place. So this is, to me, one of the most egregious abuses of civil liberties we have seen really since World War I.
I agree with that, and the difference between this big tech, big government combine and say the J. Edgar Hoover era at the FBI. Oh, by the way, it's Martin Luther King Day, so all on the left who are unquestioningly proponents of the FBI. I mean, maybe you want to remember the performance during the Civil Rights era, but but I digress. The difference here is the government using private companies to do things that they can't do. And that's also a constitutional violation. You're not allowed to do an end run around the First Amendment by enlisting private parties to put restraints on that you couldn't legitimately put on yourself.
Right. If you ask somebody else to rob a bank, you're a bank robber. And the federal government doesn't have the authority to ask somebody to commit a crime. I mean, there are some instances where they can do some forgive crimes and things like that, but the federal government doesn't actually have authority to commit crimes. Therefore, asking other people to commit crimes or constitutional violations on your behalf is not legitimate. And even if there was some kind of fine legal line, clearly this is not how people intended or want their government to operate, which is to just ignore oversight and rules and regulations and privacy and everything else by just getting somebody else to do that for them. So this is a really big deal. And what's important about this is it's not a couple of rogue agents. This is obviously a national policy on behalf of the Biden administration. And when we talk about this, we shouldn't forget it wasn't just limited to federal agencies. It seems like every member of the Democratic leadership in the Congress had equal authority to do this.
Right.
And you have to remember, this is done where nobody knows this is going on. There is no oversight. There is no disclosure. There is no discussion of this at all. And you can't say, well, it was for national security reasons, because in many of these things, it's very clear and apparent there is no national security connection. There is no crime. In many of the cases, these requests are, I don't like what this guy is saying. And they're just declaring something misinformation or a problem or a threat. When we said this on your show before, and now I think it, kind of to be carved in stone, maybe at the Martin Luther King Monument, which is you cannot create government that is people-proof. We can put all kinds of requirements. We saw this with FISA. So FISA is, as a matter of fact, we're coming up on a debate on this. FISA is basically the federal authority to do a secret wiretap or a secret warrant, right? Because you don't want because for national security reasons or public safety or something, you don't want to disclose this because it could cause a problem. So we have a whole special system in place to go to a judge to essentially get a secret warrant. But the whole idea of the system was to, in the process of doing this, still protecting people's constitutional rights and liberties. And we saw all kinds of abuses that occurred under that. And now this is coming up for people who say, well, let's not do this anymore. Well, of course, you have to do it because you need these authorities because there are legitimate requirements for them. But you also have to have a process in place to protect people's liberties. When you elect people and you put them in government and you allow them to work in federal service forever, and they don't believe in these processes and liberties, you're going to get violations like this. We've seen it again and again and again throughout our history.
Speaking of national security, oversight, and transparency, the classified documents in Biden's possession, they keep turning up. A cookie jar, the cupboard, they're all over the place, apparently, at his home. It seems to me we're, despite what the best efforts of Democrats on the Sunday talk shows, we're at the middle of this story. We're starting in the middle of the story. Right. We don't know why the attorneys did a search for classified documents in the first place, and we don't know how they're inadvertently placed everywhere and by whom. And actually, even before that, we don't know why these documents were selected for removal to Biden's private residence and then to his phony think tank, or who selected them. We don't know any of this. All we have is a few statements from his legal representatives about how they did the right thing and turned documents they discovered over to the National Archives and are cooperating with the Department of Justice. And this is an example of the Biden administration doing the right thing.
Yeah, there's two problems with this story. One is when these disclosures actually take place. This is another example of where, including with a whole bunch of people, they pushed off bad news until after the election.
Right.
Yep.
Just like Hunter's laptop, where they actually colluded to deprive the American public of information that maybe would be relevant to their choice until after the election. It's a really partisan political act. And if there's a crime involved, you could argue it's obstruction of justice. That's a problem. The second problem is their explanation is a big problem right off the point. As somebody who was in the military for 25 years, had a clearance my entire time, had clearances after that, dealt with classified information my whole life, which is why I got out of that business. I didn't want a clearance. I didn't want anything to do with the stuff is. They said, well, this is inadvertent. Well, when you're given the responsibility for the custody of classified documents, it doesn't matter how they get misused. It doesn't matter if you leave them in Starbucks by accident or if you pass them off to a Soviet agent. Inadvertent handling of classified documents is mishandling of classified documents. So what they've got done is come out and committed. They did something that was grievously wrong. They mishandled classified documents. And for the press and everybody just jump off and says, well, it's not like Trump, it was inadvertent. Well, first of all, it's wrong. And again, exactly like the Hunter Biden story, as you pointed out, we're in the middle of the story. They come out and they declare this guy innocent, and they don't even have all the facts before them. Whereas with Trump, it was, he's guilty, and then we'll go find facts to prove that. So we have, we have reached such a level of partisanship in the reporting and in the public act of governance that this is really beyond the pale.
Yeah, but I mean, why is it that Biden's personal attorneys who have no security clearance at all, they're allowed to search for more documents instead of the FBI? So right there's different treatment between Trump and President Biden.
It does seem incredibly inappropriate that you would have somebody without a clearance reviewing documents to see if they're classified or not. And for lawyers to do that seems, again, wildly inappropriate. Now, to ask a government agency, the FBI, or to come in and do that in the presence of the lawyer, with the lawyers, that's perfectly appropriate. To basically say, well, we'll look at our stuff and then we'll tell you if we find anything. And why isn't like people with a clearance, like the White House counsel or something, doing this? I don't know. As you point out, it just raises way more questions than it answers.
But don't you think President Obama is involved in this? I mean, he's vice president. He can't declassify anything. Who gave him those documents?
Again, as you pointed out, we're in the middle of the story, so there's so many questions that are unanswered here. But what's very, very clear is, not to sound like a broken record here, but one, information was denied the American public when it was most relevant.
Yep.
And two is, we don't have a full and clear accountability, and yet we have this mad rush to say nothing to see here and move on. Now, look, I've heard people say that, this is actually a Democratic plot to take Biden down. So it is ironic. Not that they're connected, because I don't know if they are. But literally a week ago, Biden was at the height of his power. I mean, we were all calling him Chauncey Gardner and everything else. But then he could turn to his base and say, look, I delivered on every single major legislative promise I promised to. I've done amazing things. I'm going to ban gas stoves. And, we didn't get hammered in the election as badly as people thought. And Biden was so emboldened and so empowered by this feeling of really invincibility that he even had the courage to go to the border, which is something he wouldn't do for 2 years because he was just afraid to get hammered. But he felt, I can even go to the border and talk nonsense at the border now. I'm invulnerable. And yet, literally a week after this, his presidency is threatened. So it is ironic, but I don't know.
He is Lieutenant Colonel Jim Carafano, VP of the Catherine and Shelby Cullum Davis Institute for International Studies at the Heritage Foundation. Have some chicken noodle soup, Jim.
Yeah, apparently. All right, thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
The bigger your 401k, the better your retirement, right? Wrong. The fact is, with proposed new taxes, another market crash, inflation, and rising healthcare costs, you could be forced to downsize your retirement. Discover the secret savvy investors are turning to for retirement security. A new 401k law that unlocks an ingenious retirement protection plan that could protect your savings from inflation and a stock market downturn while boosting your retirement income as much as 40%. It's all laid out in simple language in a new book from Josh Melberg. His insightful guide is your roadmap to retiring with confidence, and it's yours free with one call. Don't risk a lifetime of work building your retirement. This little-known retirement protection plan could safeguard your wealth and boost your retirement up to 40%. For your free copy of Guarantee Your Retirement by Josh Melberg, call now. Call 800-337-8051. That's 800-337-8051. 800-337-8051.
Guys, a lot of people talking about testosterone, but do your homework and be sure to go to a provider you can trust. I recommend my friends at Low T Center. It's where I get my levels checked for the past 8 years, actually. Low T Center exclusively specializes in men's wellness. They check all your levels, not just your testosterone, and determine the cause of any symptoms you're having and whether you're a candidate for low T or something else like low thyroid or sleep apnea. Typically, their annual health assessment is completely covered by health insurance, and they check everything, including PSA, your prostate levels. And they check thyroid, liver and kidney function, cholesterol, glucose levels, and more. Low T Center has affordable and convenient options for treatment, including monitored self-inject treatment that ships directly to you each month, so there's no need to come to the center each week. Make your health a priority this new year and schedule your annual health assessment at Low T Center today. It's covered by most health insurance or less than $100 cash pay. Visit lowtcenter.com to book your appointment online. That's lowtcenter.com. Tell them Dan Prof sent you. When you do, Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare.
If you are a first-time home buyer, which means you have not owned a home within the past 3 years, then you need to call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender. I have very, very, very valuable news for all first-time home buyers. Due to the rapid increase in interest rates last year, many first-time home buyers couldn't afford to purchase a home. And Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac want to turn those numbers around and help first-time home buyers qualify with lower interest rates. If you earn less than or equal to $105,700 and have not owned a home during the past 3 years, Fannie and Freddie are incentivizing you to purchase a home with lower rates. No, I'm not making this up. To see if you qualify, give me a call now at 855-56-DAVID or visit our website, 56david.com. That number, once again, is 855-563-2843 or visit our website, 56david.com. Lower.com, equal housing lender, NMLS 1124061.
So, how's it going with your New Year's resolutions? Not so great? Are you truly committed to trying something new, or is it all just talk? Things that seem so doable on New Year's Eve are getting tougher, aren't they? Here's the secret: developing a new routine. Make your New Year's resolutions part of your everyday routine. Find a time that works for you. Say yes to exercise and stick to it. The pounds will come off. Same goes for your blood pressure. If it's too high, check out my friends at 120 Life. 120 Life is the natural juice drink that helps lower your blood pressure without the side effects of pills. One tiny 8-ounce bottle is all it takes as part of your new daily routine. Just say, I will drink 120 Life every day. The rest just happens. Go to 120life.com, that's 120life.com, and order their 2-week trial pack. Order now and enjoy their risk-free money-back guarantee. And be sure to use the coupon code DAN to save 10%. 120 Life, a resolution in a bottle. We need more stuff like this. Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank. Your business and your money are in good hands with Signature Bank. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
Hi, I'm Nick Philippus, co-owner of Joe Donut and a proud customer of Signature Bank. We're a locally owned artisan donut shop that focuses on chef-made small batch and craft donuts. We have 7 locations around the Chicagoland suburbs, with an 8th location coming soon. After opening our original stores in Glenview and Niles, we came to Signature Bank for financing for our new Mount Prospect location. From PPP and material delays in construction, Signature Bank was flexible and truly a banking partner that a small business like ours hadn't experienced before. Even their fraud department was able to stop a $30,000 fraudulent check from clearing our account. That allowed us to focus on selling donuts knowing Signature Bank had our back.
Signature Bank helps local businesses succeed. Let Signature Bank turn your business vision into reality. Visit signaturebank.bank. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Speaking of New Year's resolutions, do you want to live a healthier, happier life? Well, try taking Balance of Nature. Why? Admit you're not getting enough fruits and veggies on your own, and that's where Balance of Nature comes in. 6 capsules a day, 3 fruit, 3 vegetables. It's all there. What they do is they take, they powder the fruits and vegetables. They turn it into a powder, I should say, after an advanced vacuum cold process, which stabilizes the maximum nutrient content. Put it in. There's 31 whole fruits and vegetables in there, folks. Real food, real science, real nutrition. And people who take Balance of Nature say they have increased energy and the ability to keep doing the things that they love even as they age. So get your health back and get the nutrition your body needs. Order your bottles of fruits and veggies today. First timers, 35% off and free shipping. Just call the number 800-246-8751, 800-246-8751. Use discount code Chicago or online to balanceofnature.com. Discount code Chicago.
It seems like everyone is on a complicated diet these days. Gluten-free, keto, metabolic, sugar-free. And with these diets comes special dietary protocol and food products. You can find plenty of advice on your social media sites, but you need expertise to purchase the right food items. A visit to Lil's Dietary Specialty Shop is necessary to shop the best food choices for a medical diet or health plan. Lil's Dietary Specialty Shop stocks all the hard-to-find foods you're looking for, like wheat and dairy alternatives, sugar-free baking mixes, healthy snacks, and more. There's no longer a reason to put off that diet you're supposed to be on when you have Lil's. The staff has personally researched and vetted each item in the store and has plenty of choices in stock.
Lil's Dietary Specialty Shop on 111th Street in Mount Greenwood on the south side of Chicago. Stop in and shop in person or order online at lilsdietary.com and get your items shipped right to your home. lilsdietary.com. Shop, learn, and be healthy.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, coming up on Chicago's Morning Answer.
We'll ask former Chief Assistant U.S. Attorney in Manhattan, contributing editor National Review, Andy McCarthy, about the Biden classified document matter and whether the Hillary Clinton standard is applicable to both he and former President Trump. That's at 7:37.
But first, let's go into the newsroom. Here is Mike Scott.
Dan and Amy, 42 degrees. Light rain showers have crossed the area. And a spokesman for the Nepal Civil Aviation Authority says a flight data recorder and a cockpit voice recorder have been retrieved from the site of a crash, a plane that went down on approach to a newly opened airport near the Nepal tourist town of Pokhara, killing at least 68 of the 72 on board. California bracing for another round of snow and rain.
Experts predict these damaging storm systems will come with a hefty price tag.
I estimate, in the hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars worth of damage.
Some areas have also already received their annual rainfall just over the last 2 weeks. A University of Alabama basketball player, Darius Miles, and another man have been charged with capital murder after a fatal shooting near campus in Tuscaloosa. 23-year-old Jamia Harris of Birmingham was shot and killed. The 21-year-old Miles and another 20-year-old were charged with murder. One Democrat senator calling the discovery of classified documents in President Biden's personal possession embarrassing.
It's embarrassing that you would find a small number of documents, certainly not on purpose. They don't think it's the right thing.
That's retiring Michigan Senator Debbie Stabenow. Utah Republican Representative Chris Stewart says it's very clear sensitive documents are always clearly marked.
Every one of these documents, they have a cover sheet that's red. It says what the classification is and why it's classified. Every single page has a classification marking on it.
In other news, we're following the death toll from the weekend Russian missile strikes on an apartment building in the southeast city in Ukraine of Dnipro has risen to 37. 2 elderly people are seriously hurt following a fire in their home in Chicago's Little Italy neighborhood. It happened yesterday, and the cause is not known. A wild police chase in Waukesha, Wisconsin, ends inside an apartment complex. It started early yesterday morning when police tried to pull over a driver from Chicago. That driver sped away. Police followed that car until it slammed into the Spring City apartment complex. 3 inside that car were taken to the hospital to be examined. Italian film star Gina Lollobrigida has died at the age of 95 in Rome. Her agent said the actress died early this morning. Lollobrigida achieved international stardom in the 1950s, dubbed the most beautiful woman in the world. Bulls beat the Warriors 132-118. Warriors have dropped 4 of 5. Fighting Illini now 3-3 in the Big Ten after weekend play. They play at the Barn in Minnesota tonight. Meantime, Northwestern fell at Chrysler Arena to the Michigan Wolverines, 85-78. Wildcard weekend winners in the NFL, Bills, Giants, and Bengals. The news, a service of the Salem Podcast Network with episodes from Charlie Kirk, Todd Starnes, Trish Regan, and many more. Subscribe free, SalemPodcastNetwork.com. And a check of traffic and weather on the way next on AM 560.
Brandon Tatum says it can't all be about race.
Since a magazine, they get roasted for claiming that football is racist after DeMar Hamlin collapses. Listen, let me tell you something. If you walking through life and everything is about race, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should be stripped of your titles and go lay down somewhere.
The Officer Tatum Show. Weeknights at 7, right before Jay Sekulow at 9 on AM 560. The Answer.
Hi, it's Amy, and MyPillow is excited to bring you their biggest bedding sale ever. Get the Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98. A set of pillowcases for only $9.98. Folks, they look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, which is crucial for my busy schedule. So trust me, these sheets are ridiculously comfy. Rejuvenate your bed with a MyPillow mattress topper for as low as $99.99. They also have blankets in a variety of sizes, colors, and styles. They even have blankets for your pets. Get duvets, quilts, down comforters, body pillows, bolster pillows, and so much more, all with the biggest discounts ever. MyPillow is also extending their money-back guarantee until March. So go to MyPillow.com or call 800-489-0201. Use promo code Amy, and you'll get huge discounts on all MyPillow bedding products, including those amazing Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98 while quantities last. And don't forget to use promo code Amy for the best possible discounts available.
You know when you start up a motorcycle and you hear it go vroom, vroom, vroom when it takes off? I was losing that. I was losing my energy like everybody does as they grow older. And I don't want to be tired. I don't want to look tired, and I don't want to be tired. I started using Balance of Nature about 1.5 years ago. Noticed the results immediately. And I went, oh my gosh, this works. This is what I've been missing all my life. I'm loving life actually more than I ever have. I missed my va-va voom. I got it back.
Experience the Balance of Nature difference for yourself. See why Kathy Lee Gifford and thousands of others have had life-changing success with Balance of Nature. Take advantage of our New Year's offer while you still can. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go to balanceofnature.com. That's 1-800-246-8751 and get $25 off plus a free fiber and spice when you use discount code KLG.
If you're a business owner or investor with over $1 million saved, listen up. How would you like to set up a 6-figure tax-free retirement cash flow for life in just 5 payments? There's a retirement crisis in America because the 4% rule has been slashed to 2.8%, plus taxes are a unique threat to the affluent. In fact, world-renowned tax expert Ed Slatt says taxes are the #1 risk to your wealth. A new approach is required to solve these problems. That's why this revolutionary 5-payment retirement program was released, allowing affluent Americans to use bank money to create a retirement cash flow flow without relying on Social Security or pensions. Affluent investors and business owners have shifted money to this new strategy because it accelerates the amount they will have at retirement and protects them from future tax increases. So if you have over $1 million saved and want a bigger, better retirement in just 5 payments, call Illinois 5-Pay specialist and best-selling author Navy Dowdy to see if you qualify for this brand new program. Plus, as a free bonus, you'll get a free copy of his book and video. No credit card required. Call 800-392-9595. Once again, 800-392-9595.
You don't need special gadgets to be a hero. With unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere, the Capital One Quicksilver Card makes you the hero of every purchase. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
7:38. Let's check the roads. Team Hochberg Traffic Center time, a service of the Daybreak Insider podcast. Hear the latest reporting and analysis of the day's most important stories each weekday morning on the Daybreak Insider podcast. Kennedy outbound jammed up Foster to Sayre this morning. Stevenson inbound 23 from 23 minutes in from 355 to DuSable Lakeshore Drive. You're slowed up Ashland into the Ryan. Tri-State jams up northbound right at I-88, the Reagan Memorial. Metro Rock Island trains delays of uncertain variety from the Beverly branch all the way into the LaSalle Street station. Mechanical failures, the problem. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast. Rain, maybe a peal of thunder by the afternoon, a high of 49, 40 overnight, 42 tomorrow, and 40 on Wednesday. It's 43 right now. Next news at 8. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560 The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. The Democrat Socialists want you to know they are men and women of unyielding principle. That was the spin on the Sunday talk shows over the weekend, of course, as it pertains to classified documents in Biden's possession versus classified documents in Trump's possession. A good example of this, trying to make the distinction between the two, in the interest of damage control for Mr. 10%, the big guy, the current White House occupant. Dan Goldman is a Democrat socialist from New York. He was on Meet the Press and made sure to convey, so that we understand, he has a paradigm that he applies to both situations, and he has done so. And Joe Biden is exonerated, and President Trump is guilty.
You had an op-ed last year about the 45th president and the issues with classified material, and you laid out 4 factors you said prosecutors need to look at: intent to distribute, clear knowledge of importance, volume of the material, and whether or not investigators had been lied to. Is that the set of criteria you also think President Biden needs to be judged on?
It absolutely is, and I think if you go through those criteria, in each one, they do not apply. We don't have any indication that President Biden knew about them. He certainly has demonstrated no intent to deceive or obstruct the government by keeping them, and that's in direct contrast to President Trump, who refused to cooperate, who refused to comply with a subpoena, and who ultimately forced the Department of Justice to execute a search warrant to retrieve the classified documents. When you look at this very clearly and you compare them, there is no comparison. Those 4 factors, I believe, apply to President Trump, and none of them apply to President Biden. And that is where we need to be centering this conversation.
Exactly. Stop paying attention to what's going on in Biden world and the documents that keep popping up at his house. Just focus on prosecuting Trump, because that's all that's appropriate here, based on that very thorough legal analysis you heard from the good representative. For more on this, pleased to be joined by Andy McCarthy. He's a former chief assistant U.S. attorney in Manhattan, contributing editor at National Review, author of the bestseller Ball of Collusion, The Plot to Rig an Election and Destroy a Presidency. Andy, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Morning. How are you?
Good. So you heard that that in-depth review from Representative Goldman, and it's quite clear that Biden did nothing wrong and Trump did, and let's focus on Trump.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry to hear Goldman, turn as political as he has, but I think wasn't he Schiff's counsel on the impeachment? So I guess It's not a surprise. Plus,
exactly.
He's a New York Democrat, so even if he thinks differently, I don't think he'd be able to say any differently. So no, look, I think the problem here, everybody is comparing Trump and Biden when, the context here is Hillary Clinton. And my lawyer's Southern District of New York analysis of all this, for what it's worth, has been that after Clinton got a pass, if you were trying to build a case on Trump on the theory that he was so uniquely awful compared to Clinton that he should be prosecuted, even though she had a 4-year willful violation where the whole objective was to defeat the government laws about record keeping, and then she misled investigators. Her legal team colluded with the Justice Department to limit what the FBI could investigate, and she destroyed tens of thousands of government records when she knew they were relevant to investigations, including the Benghazi investigation. I think if you were going to prosecute Trump after all of that, you really had, it was uphill for the Justice Department. They couldn't afford for anything to go wrong. So, then coming out of left field, as it turns out, the President of the United States, the sitting one, is essentially guilty of the same offense that Trump is under investigation for. I just don't see how you can bring the case. You can quibble about, we don't know a lot about Biden's offense, including how those documents got there and how many times they were moved. There's a lot of unanswered questions about all that. But even if Goldman was right, and Trump was by degree worse, the fact is it's the same offense, and you can't rationalize charging Trump after you didn't charge Hillary.
Right. What was the point of the raid on Mar-a-Lago in the first place, knowing you had as you point out, the Hillary Clinton precedent, destroying evidence, for goodness sakes, and which is, by definition, obstructing justice. And if you didn't believe that you could, if that precedent is controlling effectively, then why put yourself in this position in the first place?
Yeah, well, I guess where I part company with you on that is my beef with Hillary Clinton is that she should have been charged.
Yeah,
and I don't believe that because she wasn't charged, we therefore never again can charge anyone else. Otherwise, why enforce the laws at all? So I think what you have to say is a profound mistake was made in not charging Clinton, but the reason Trump got a search warrant was because they tried for a year and a half to plead with him to turn the documents over, and then he flouted a grand jury subpoena, which you or I, if we provided false statements to a grand jury, we'd be prosecuted. So I don't have a lot of sympathy for Trump in that regard.
But aren't you suggesting that nobody's going to get prosecuted because of this Biden development?
I think it's because of the Biden development on top of the context that's set by Clinton. I think I could find. I might not be crazy about it because I think there's a lot of downsides to prosecuting Trump, not least, the fact that people in this country are on fire over the two-tiered justice system.
Right.
But if you could make an argument that, Trump committed something that anybody else would be prosecuted for, namely providing false evidence to a grand jury, I could at least indulge that. The problem is the underlying offense is a classified information offense, and they're clearly not going to prosecute Biden on that. So I don't see how you prosecute Trump.
Well, right, but then my point is to say then you're essentially concluding that Merrick Garland is making decisions based not on the rule of law, but based on politics.
Yeah, but if you had asked me that at the beginning, I would have said that as well. Look,
okay, fair enough.
Garland appointed a special counsel for Trump on, was it the 18th of November, 2 weeks after he found out what happened with Biden. And he should already have appointed a special counsel for Biden 2 years ago in connection with what they like to call the Hunter investigation, but what is actually, in terms of its relevance to the country, it's about, what did the Chinese think they were buying when they gave millions and millions of dollars to Joe Biden and his family.
Right.
That should have had a special counsel 2 years ago.
But when he left office, Biden was vice president, which he can't declassify any, documents. But how did he get those documents in the first place? Did Obama give them to him? That's what I don't understand.
Well, he didn't need Obama. When he was vice president, he had access to classified information. And when he left the White House, he continued to have a security clearance. Okay. So, I don't think his access to classified information is troubling any more than if Trump simply had access to classified information and he was following the rules for, reviewing it and handling it, there would be no problem, right? So the issue is, how did the documents get? And I don't think they got to his Penn Biden office in Washington first. I think they must have gone to the office he had set up at the University of Pennsylvania first. And the other thing is, we already know he's got documents in at least 2 different locations in private homes, right? So what I also don't understand is, once you find out that that's a problem, why are we relying on his aides who don't have a security clearance to go through his stuff? If he's fully cooperating with the FBI, then why isn't the FBI at these locations looking for the stuff?
So something else too. You raised the point about when Merrick Garland knew about the classified documents being in his possession, which was pre-election, because of the disclosure and the ostensible turning over of these documents to the National Archives. So, did Merrick Garland have a duty to disclose? We were so focused on Biden's duty to disclose, the lack of transparency there, or to the extent any members of the press knew. What about Merrick Garland?
Dan, I would have said no, because the Justice Department, generally speaking, doesn't talk about ongoing investigations, except in connection with the Trump search. He came out and gave a press conference. So, again, what I think you're underscoring is that the way these cases have been handled has been, 2 different qualities of justice. And, the people who always come out on the short end are the Republicans.
Yeah, and there was great effort made, including by Jamie Raskin and others, over the weekend to distinguish the Biden versus Trump case, as you heard from Goldman, the invocation of January 6th, and anything to misdirect away. But it seems to me that the best thing that could happen to Trump is for Merrick Garland to indict Trump and not prosecute Joe Biden. I mean, I'm talking about politically here. Politically, because then he gets to run against the Department of Justice. He doesn't have to run against DeSantis or, to some extent, even whoever the nominee for the Democrats are. You're going to have this be a referendum on the Department of Justice and this 2-tier system of justice you're describing, and that is like populism center cut for Trump.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think, the only thing that cuts against that is, I thought all along the Democrats want to run against Trump because they're confident that they can beat him in a general election and they think he can win the nomination.
Right.
The question you have to ask if you're the Democrats is, do you want Trump running in that context where, the issue isn't necessarily then Trump, although he'll be, he obviously galvanizes turnout on the Democrat side. But the issue will be the 2-tiered justice system, which I think has people on fire in this country. Personally, I don't think Trump could win a national election again, but I wouldn't want to roll the dice on it.
Well, do you think these documents are going to ruin Biden's reelection bid?
Well, I think Biden's reelection bid ought to go by the wayside of its own weight, right? I mean, aside from the fact that he's not a good president, and he's kind of I think the documents to me are like the classified information iteration of the Biden we've seen for 50 years. He's just a screw-up. And he'll be like an 82-year-old screw-up in the next term. So I can't believe that we're in a situation where he's apt to be the nominee under the circumstances. And it could well be that we're hearing a lot of this stuff because they're, the project to push it out of the way is already underway. But, I don't know.
Speaking of the Biden Inc. portion of the program here, you mentioned the special counsel that should have been appointed long ago. There was an exchange between Ron Johnson and Chuck Todd on Meet the Press.
Yeah.
Chuck Todd is trying to distinguish the Department of Justice investigation from congressional inquiries, suggesting that Johnson and Grassley in the Senate or Jim Comer in the House, that these investigations of Hunter Biden and the Biden family, although he leaves it to Hunter purposefully, they're illegitimate. They're just political because the Department of Justice is investigating. They will determine if there were any crimes committed. And as Chuck Todd, I think, soon to be famously said, there's no crime in making money off your family name.
Well, yeah, I think any fair-minded person who compared getting millions and millions of dollars from the Chinese to the Ukraine issue that they investigated Trump over would have to conclude that the national security problem, which the most profound problem the framers were worried about when they put the impeachment clause in the Constitution, was the possibility that a president who would wield all the awesome power that they crafted for the executive branch could be purchased by a foreign government and do the bidding of that government to the detriment of the American people. So it's got nothing to do with whether a crime was committed. The question is, what did the Chinese think they were buying when they paid all that money to Biden? And that would be, if Biden was not the person in the crosshairs here, if it was any other Republican, including Trump, it would be the only story that Chuck Todd was talking about until articles of impeachment were filed. So I can't really take him too seriously. The issue is, the importance of that issue is not whether there's grounds for criminal prosecution or not. It's a national security issue of what does a hostile anti-American communist regime think it bought when it paid millions of dollars to the Biden family. And it's not only a totally legitimate question. Anyone who tried to get a security clearance in an ordinary government position that required one, with that in his or her background, would never, ever get a security clearance.
He is Andy McCarthy, former Chief Assistant U.S. Attorney, Southern District of New York in Manhattan, contributing editor, National Review, author of the bestseller Ball of Collusion: The Plot to Rig an Election and Destroy a Presidency. Andy, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Have a great week.
Thanks, you too. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
This is Ed Morrissey of HotAir.com for Town Hall. Finally cornered by the media over a scandal the White House hid before the midterms, Joe Biden claimed that he takes security seriously for classified material. Just how seriously? After the Department of Justice disclosed that Biden had kept classified documents in his garage, Biden told the media that it was every bit as safe as his Corvette. The Corvette standard had until Thursday been applied by the media. After Merrick Garland appointed a special counsel and detailed how the White House had slow-rolled the news of Biden's violations of the Espionage Act, that standard began to change. Earlier reporting had been framed almost entirely around the usual Republicans pounce narrative. Afterward, media outlets began to grudgingly note that the scandal was at least the same class as the one hyped up about Donald Trump, and that Biden and his team had hid it until well after the midterms. That's not a Corvette standard. It's a political car wreck entirely of Biden's own making. I'm Ed Morrissey.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, for those considering careers in politics and policy.
Are you growing your manufacturing team this year and need new employees? Turn to Monarch Technical Services. They've been leading the Chicago staffing industry for manufacturing and engineering since 1987. You'll appreciate their vetting process. They meet every candidate in person to interview and test for specific skills. Monarch assesses experience by using blueprint, shop math, part measurement, and CNC program exams. Their quality skills assessor was once a plant manager who worked on manufacturing equipment, so he recognizes who has the skills to fit each job requirement. Monarch Technical now offers a 30-day free trial with any day one direct hire. This allows you to make sure direct hire employees are fitting in before fees are paid. And they have a unique payment option which allows the finder's fee to be paid in 6 equal monthly payments. So if you're growing your manufacturing team this year and searching for exceptional talent, contact Monarch Technical Services at 847-342-1221. That's 847-342-1221, or online at monarchtechnical.com. That's monarchtechnical.com.
Balance of Nature's fruits and vegetables in a capsule, changing the world one life at a time.
Well, I drive a truck for a living. I don't get hardly any exercise. I'm not kidding you now. I'm not easily sold on anything, but I'm a firm believer in this product. You know, I watched those advertisements for 2 or 3 years and listened to the radio going down the road, and I said, something's got to be going on with that product for that many people to do ads for them. And I'll tell you what, I just uptown a while ago, I told some of my buddies, I said, I'm not BSing you, man. I'm not kidding you. It's amazing. It totally amazes me.
Experience the Balance of Nature difference for yourself. Right now, Balance of Nature is offering free shipping and 35% off on any new preferred order. Start your journey to better health today by calling 1-800-2468-751. That's 800-2468-751. Or go to balanceofnature.com and use discount code Chicago.
The following is a paid political announcement.
Why not Willie Wilson for mayor of Chicago? The criminals won't like Willie Wilson in the mayor's office. Fighting crime is Willie Wilson's first priority. The city isn't safe. The city streets, the CTA, are not safe. Willie Wilson knows that personally.
My son was murdered. I know the anger, and I know the pain.
Willie Wilson is ready to take on the criminals. Finally, Chicago, do it right. Willie Wilson for mayor.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, coming up on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Martin Luther King said he had been to the mountaintop, but are we still in the valley when it comes to race relations in America? We'll ask Kentucky State poli-sci professor Will Riley at 8:08.
Today's showers, but it will be warm, a high of 47 degrees. It is now 8 a.m., WIND, Chicago.
Republicans have even more questions and demands. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. After we found out over the weekend, more classified documents were found at President Biden's Delaware residence from his days as vice president.
That is essentially a crime scene. Once the special counsel was appointed.
House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer demanding Biden residence visitor logs. Here's another question.
What exactly was the president's thinking, and what was his logic in having personal attorneys that don't have security clearances searching for these national security documents, these classified documents?
Fox's Peter Ducey at the White House. Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff tells ABC's This Week they want the same probe as the one into former President Trump's classified documents the FBI seized.
We have asked for an assessment in the intelligence community of the Mar-a-Lago documents. I think we ought to get that same assessment of the documents found in the think tank as well as the home of President Biden.
They found the black box recorders in Nepal, hoping to find out why a plane crashed with 72 people on board, 69 bodies found so far. It's up to at least 40 people dead from Russia's weekend missile strike on an apartment building in Dnipro, Ukraine.
There is pain and there is anger. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky with a message for Russians who failed to condemn these attacks. One day these same terrorists will come for you, he says.
Fox's Jonathan Savage. Actress Gina Lollobrigida has died. She was an Italian movie star of the 1950s and 60s during what's called Hollywood's golden age. She was 95. They handed out the Critics' Choice Awards last night. Brandon Fraser won big and got emotional.
I want you to know that if you too can have the strength to just get to your feet and go to the light, good things will happen.
That was on the CW. Brandon Fraser won Best Actor for The Whale. Best Picture went to Everything Everywhere All at Once. America's listening to Fox News.
We've had light rain showers crossing the area. We're at 42 degrees at 8:02 on AM 560 The Answer. And good morning. I'm Mike Scott. 2 are seriously hurt. It all follows a fire at their home in Chicago's Little Italy neighborhood in the 800 block of South Bishop Street. One man hospitalized in grave condition this morning. Authorities are investigating a shooting in South Suburban Park Forest. One person shot last night in the 100 block of Warwick Street. The victim hospitalized in critical condition. Northside voters getting a chance to hear from the candidates running for mayor of Chicago. All 9 candidates took part in a forum last night, including incumbent Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
We've cleared more homicides over the last 2 years than in the previous 10 years.
And mayoral candidate Brandon Johnson.
It is disappointing to be on the stage with a bunch of individuals who claim to be Democrats, and they're growing one of the largest budgets in the entire budget, which is the police budget.
The election takes place on February 28. A duck hunter Saturday morning in Lake County, Indiana, came upon something different: skeletal remains. The remains were found by the hunter around 7 a.m. in a marshy area near Klein Avenue and River Drive in Griffith, according to the Indiana DNR. Sheriff's Office, dive team members, and conservation officers confirmed the remains were human. The identity currently remains unknown. Bulls beat Golden State 132-118. College hoops, Northwestern fell to Michigan 85-78. The news, a service of the AM 560 store, and at 8:03, it's time for the AM 560 Business Beat, a service of Signature Bank. Visit signaturebank.bank for all your commercial banking needs. Now, the latest from the Fox Business Network.
I'm Connell McShane. This is the Fox Business Report.
U.S. markets are closed in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Wall Street getting ready for a big week of earnings, including from Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and United Airlines tomorrow, later in the week. We also get numbers from Charles Schwab, Netflix, Procter & Gamble, and Schlumberger. People around the world are more gloomy about their economic prospects than ever before and trust businesses far more than governments, nonprofits, and the media, according to a survey from public relations firm Edelman. Global leaders are gathering in Davos, Switzerland for the World Economic Forum Summit. And anti-poverty group Oxfam says companies making big profits as inflation surges, such as food companies, should face windfall taxes to help cut global inequality. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Lillian Wu, invested in you.
8:05, a check of traffic and weather on the way next on AM 560.
Make sure that you never miss a day of Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson when you subscribe to the Chicago's Morning Answer podcast, presented by Signature Bank. Listen to the entire show each day on demand with limited commercial breaks. You can subscribe today for free at 560theanswer.com and click on podcasts or search for Chicago's Morning Answer on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Attention! If you owe money to the IRS, this is an urgent message. The IRS is cracking down by sending out heart-stopping letters, aggressively garnishing paychecks, seizing bank accounts, and putting liens on homes and businesses. They call it enforced compliance, and you better watch out because penalties and interest on unpaid taxes compound daily, making it seem impossible to ever get out of debt. Don't let the tax debt destroy your life. You need to call Optima Tax Relief, the #1 tax resolution firm. They're experts in the Fresh Start Initiative, one of the biggest breaks that the IRS has ever offered. If you qualify, you could save thousands. Optima's resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, they'll fight to get you the best deal possible. Call Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
As time goes by, we can all use a little more help getting around. Staying mobile and independent can be tough for some, especially our aging loved ones. When you need assistance finding the right quality products to make life easier and more enjoyable, there's Mars Medical Supply. Home medical equipment and supplies to keep you or someone you care for independent and mobile. Whether it's living with certain medical conditions and disorders or recovering from injuries and surgeries that are difficult to cope with, shopping for specialty products can be frustrating. The Mars Medical Consultants will help you find the right solution and feature a full line of lift chairs, scooters, knee walkers, power wheelchairs, and rollator walkers. There's also financing available on purchases over $200 through Care Credit to help you get the products you need right away. For home medical equipment and supplies, rely on Mars Medical Supply, 333 West Maple Street in New Lenox. Browse products and featured items online at marsmedicalsupply.com. Mars Medical, keeping you independent and mobile for over 30 years, with customer care that's out of this world.
My friend had his home stolen. The crime is home title theft. It's real. It's horrendous, but it's real, and it's everywhere. Now, luckily, this was just a demo, but I saw how criminals all around the world target American homeowners, and that's why I protect my home with Home Title Lock, and you need to as well. And a thief can simply forge your signature on a legal document claiming you sold your home to them. Homeowners insurance and common identity theft programs do not protect you, but Home Title Lock does. So protect yourself. Just go to their website. It's hometitlelock.com/Sean, SEAN. Verify your home's title is still safely in your name. Then just register your address for a free, no-obligation home title report for your files. That is a $100 value, absolutely free. That's hometitlelock.com/Sean, hometitlelock.com/Sean, SEAN.
8:08. Let's get an update on the roads now. Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. Roads are a little wet from the overnight precipitation. Things are getting a little slow as you begin your trip in on the Stevenson Expressway, especially between Ashland and the Ryan Merge. It's 25 minutes in from 355 to DuSable Lakeshore Drive. Lighter than normal on the Tri-State, but still jammed as you travel northbound on 294 right at the Reagan I-88 Merge. Metro Rock Island trains delayed because of mechanical trouble on the Beverly branch up to Blue Island. It's again on the Metro Rock Island this morning. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast with Ruth O'Brien.
Periods of rain, even a thunderstorm today, the high 49. Overcast with a passing shower or two tonight, low 40. Brief shower tomorrow morning, otherwise mostly cloudy, high 42. Considerably cloudy Wednesday, high 40. I'm Ruth O'Brien on AM 560, The Answer.
43 at O'Hare. Next news, 8:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, on this Martin Luther King Day. Much of King's reviews of America remain as relevant today and in many different ways than they were when he offered them during the height of the civil rights movement. Something that he said in his last public address at Mason Temple in Memphis, Tennessee, his I've Been to the Mountaintop address, particularly salient in my view.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
And so the freedoms that are enshrined in the founding documents but are hard won and preserved in practice, well, those battles continue today. I would argue much less across racial lines than ideological ones. And you have the left, as we mentioned earlier in the program, the irony of the left full-throated embrace of the FBI and all that it does. The same FBI that they would rightly have protested in the 60s when they were improperly surveilling Martin Luther King and infringing upon the rights of civil rights leaders. Same excesses that gave rise to the Church Committee, which we discussed as well. But as long as the target is appropriate politically, then the ends justify the means. That seems to be the order of the day. And now, in addition to the racial prism, you have the gender identity prism that has taken hold. And that's the standard of analysis that needs to be applied in determining who is oppressed and who is oppressor. And so you have moments like this one, 17-year-old Rebecca Phillips. She went to the YMCA in Santee, California, I guess where she lives and works. And she relayed what happened to the village board there, the Santee City Council, wanting them to do something about YMCA policy. Well, that's not going to happen, and you'll understand why when you hear what happened to her.
Good evening, council members and residents of Santee behind me. My name is Rebecca Phillips, and I'm 17 years old. I am not a resident of Santee, but I am employed at a local restaurant, the Omelet Factory, and I work out regularly at the Santee YMCA. Just 2 weeks ago, after finishing my shift at my job, I went to the gym to swim laps. As I was showering after my workout, I saw a naked male in the women's locker room. I immediately went back into the shower, terrified, and hid behind their flimsy excuse for a curtain until he was gone. I ran into a bathroom stall to change as quickly as I could, organizing my thoughts to share with the people at the front desk. As I did so, I could only think of my 5-year-old sister, who I bring to this gym during the summer to enjoy their water slides. This is the YMCA, where hundreds of children spend their summer afternoons in child care camps. This is the YMCA where my little sister took gymnastics lessons. The locker room was supposed to be her safe haven to gossip with her friends and shower and change. When I asked the YMCA management what their policy was regarding transgenders, they confirmed that the man that I saw was indeed allowed to shower wherever he pleased. As long as you are not a red flag on Megan's Law, the California Sex Offender Registry, a grown male can shower alongside a teenage girl at your YMCA location here in Santee. I was made to feel as though I had done something wrong when I talked to people at the YMCA. Somehow, the indecent exposure of a male to a female minor was an inconvenience to them. When my dad spoke to the sheriff's office, they told him that he should never allow me to shower there ever again. The YMCA wouldn't let my father speak to the manager of the Santee branch. After waiting several days, he finally received a call from Terry Moss, who is the director of membership for San Diego County. She informed my dad that I was not in any danger at the time of the incident, that I was safe. But I ask you this. I'm assuming all of you either have a wife, a sister, daughters, or granddaughters, or are a woman yourself. Could you knowingly send an underage girl into a room where there was a naked male and say that she was not in danger, that she was safe, or more importantly, that this was right?
Yeah, the Young Men's Christian Association, or the YWCA Young Women's Christian Association. Right. We had this too, the oppressor and the oppressed. Have you seen the new owner of the Miss Universe pageant?
Yeah, I did.
Jacka Fong Jakrajuatitip or something like that.
Yes, and he was so excited to let everybody know that Miss Universe pageant is owned by women now. Is it?
Yeah, women like this dude.
The Miss Universe organization from now on is going to be ran by women, owned by trans women, for all women. for all women really around the world to celebrate the power of feminism.
Yeah. Celebrate the power of feminism. Some second and third wave feminists may have an issue with that, but hey, I understand those are just TERFs, the trans exclusionary types. Just like the awfuls that are the great vanguard, the affluent white female leftists, the vanguard of uplifting black and other minority families too. Golly, gee, the identitarian politics. If I was one of these supposed beneficiaries of identity politics, I don't know. I'd ask some of these self-appointed spokespeople to sit down, but that's me. You know, I'm a little persnickety that way. For more on all things identity politics related, across race and across gender in particular, pleased to be joined by our friend Will Riley again. Will is a poli-sci professor at Kentucky State University, author of Hate Crime Hoax, How the Left is Selling a Fake Race War. Will, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Always glad to be back on the show.
Happy to have you. We don't have any update on the noose that was found at the Obama library site. It's still a $100,000 reward on that, so I'm sure Chicago police will apprise us if there are any developments. Yes. But just beginning with race, since it is Martin Luther King Day, and reflecting on that, and since you wrote a book about the left selling a fake race war, how would you describe black-white race relations in this country in 2023?
Well, I think there are two levels there. So, I mean, first of all, yeah, I wrote the book Hate Crime Hoax, and I think that that's probably what's going to turn out to be the case with the Obama Center noose, the legendary noose. Since we last talked, the bomb threats made to historically black colleges, which were attributed to white supremacists, this kind of thing, turned out to be the work of kind of one stoner kid in his parents' basement. They've been tracked down to one minor suspect, according to my contact at the FBI. And nobody knows what race he is. The agents that are working that case won't release the data, whatever that might mean. So, I mean, very, very often we don't have the Klan in downtown Chicago actually hanging gee ropes from presidential museums. And in fact, you might just suspect people use rope on construction sites. But in terms of race relations
close to
in
MAGA
America,
country, though. Yeah, that library is close to MAGA country in Streeterville. So yeah.
Yeah, and I used to actually live around there in MAGA country. Chicago's a young professional neighborhood. That's a real Trump land over there.
Yeah, right.
All those MAGA hats. I mean, it's hard to keep track of it.
Yeah.
It's been probably a 30% minority, 10% gay over there, and the young. But at any rate, but race relations in America, I think there really are two elements here. First of all, on a day-to-day basis. I mean, I always say if you go to the basketball court, the golf course, the barbershop, race relations are absolutely normal. I went to a UK basketball game down here near Louisville, Lexington recently. I mean, tens of thousands of people of every ethnic background just sort of hanging out. You might see a high school fight between white and black kids, but there really are very few tensions on a day-to-day basis. And we've moved beyond white and black today. I mean, the country is 7% Asian, 17% Caucasian, Hispanic, this kind of thing. So I think there's that in reality. You see that in the Army as well. You see that in varsity athletics. And then I think that there's the presentation of race relations that you get from the media, which is constant tension and violence, the groups at one another's throats. I mean, going back to Marshall McLuhan, media realized long ago that there's certain things that sell. I mean, sex, bright pictures of food, war. But one of them is ethnic conflict. And I think, unfortunately, that old marketing lesson has been, reinforced through generations of the cable news business. So if a black man and a white woman get into a shoving match in a dog park, that's almost guaranteed to become regional, if not national news. Right. So there's this very false picture of what race relations look like, and that's a real problem.
Well, I don't know. Did you ever cover this? Remember the North Carolina power outage? And they blamed it originally, or were looking into it, due to drag queen show protesters? Never had a follow-up on that one either. And I tweeted that out, NBC News, saying, they think that it's one of these people who protested this drag queen show downtown in some small town in North Carolina.
Yeah, this is actually the sort of, I mean, and again, this is what inspired the book. I noticed that a whole bunch of these claims, whether you're talking about, Yasmin Saweed, the torn hijab on the 6 over there in New York, Jussie Smollett, right back home in Chicago, Covington Catholic, where I live now, most of these claims just turned out not to be real. And yeah, in the drag queen context, there's been this whole quote unquote groomer debate about what's appropriate to expose kids to. And so you've been seeing these fist fights, frankly, these confrontations between Black Bloc Antifa fighters and, sort of tough parent types at what are called family-friendly drag shows. And this itself is kind of a ridiculous sideshow, in my opinion. Don't bring your 6-year-old to a drag show. But someone claimed that this had gone much further. One of the groups, I assume they probably blame the conservatives, had shot up a power station. And this was what was responsible for a major power outage. And yeah, you're right. That turned out not to be the case. That was apparently just a claim that was made in the media, maybe to the police. There was no connection at all between an attack on a power station and drag. So this is pretty frequent, actually, and it's again one of these sort of weird phenomena where we think there's constant negative conflict and violence in the country, but a great deal of that is the result of media overfocus, and not a little bit of it is the result of actual hoaxing.
Well, and political activists that are trying to move the flag. And so, this is the whole solidarity and marginality play that the left makes, and the new mascot are the trans individuals. And so you have the endless stream of allegedly depressing stats about the incidents of trans people being victims of violence, which are cooked up numbers, and so on and so forth. And this sort of has replaced race as the cause celeb for white leftist women in the suburbs.
Yeah, well, that first of all, one point there that is fairly deep is if you look at financial donations, who often controls the pocketbook in the home, and if you certainly look at the people most likely to endorse specific things, like the use of the term Latinx or Latine for Spanish guy, Latino, whatever else you might have said before, that's very much driven by this specific group, which is white, upper middle to low upper class, college educated, left-leaning women. So yeah, that is very much the case. And the idea that there's sort of, what'd you say, solidarity and marginalization or something, I mean, that also is a character. Now, to some extent, we have this on the right as well. There's really not much that, Don Jr., who looks like a fun guy to have a couple whiskeys with, and like the Reverend Falwell have in common. But on the left, this is even more extreme, in that the idea is what you have is a coalition of all the groups in the country that currently feel somewhat oppressed against the man or the system or whatever. And without that understanding, which not many people have outside of the media or political science, there's not really much that holds together, say, the trans movement and the Christian black community or something like that.
Right. No, but right. But this solidarity and marginality, this is purposeful, and because the man, which is the left, who controls all these institutions, is constantly telling people how oppressed they are, because they understand that's part of the rich tapestry of their governing coalition if they're going to have one.
Well, yeah, the idea is that there are these endless forms of oppression. So what would it be? Transphobia, but then there's racism, there's sexism, there's cis-sexism, heterosexism, post-colonialism. So the idea is that perhaps one by one, these groups would be minorities, but combined, these groups make up, it would actually be something like 270% of society, but these groups make up a winning coalition. And again, the problem, if I were thinking as a GOP strategist, the problem is that these groups have absolutely nothing in common. I mean, there's nothing that unifies trans women, who are men who believe that they are women, and traditional, without any insult, the definition, and traditional third-wave feminists who are strong women who want to compete with men in the business world. I mean, there's nothing really there that is a unifier, and that's why it seems to someone of our generation who's maybe been in a dating relationship with a traditional feminist, it seems so bizarre to see someone who is male and was a successful male businessman before admitting that they have a taste called autogynephilia, standing up and saying, well, I am the first female hit of the Miss Universe pageant. I mean, the reaction is sort of, well, are you now? But at any rate, the idea is bringing all these groups together and bringing them together against basically us, or maybe just you, but the people in suits that are seen as running society. Barack Obama once referred to this as the coalition of the fringes.
Right. Yeah. Seen as running society. So I mean, this is the great trick they pull off is that they get those that they're describing as oppressors to fold in with them so that they can be absolved of their sins of oppression. And this is how you become, what's the word, allied with these marginalized populations. Now you're a good person again.
Yeah, and the thing that's important for people to realize, especially those people in your audience that might be more inclined to the milk of human kindness than I am myself, is that this is all politically strategic. I mean, right now the average income for Black Americans has come within 10 or 15% of that for whites before you adjust for age. Asians make 17% more than whites. There actually isn't a great deal of oppression in the United States. So in 2023, it's not like the coalition of the fringes is actually fighting against a China-style genocide or something like that. This is just a political tactic. But yeah, the goal is to bring as many of these groups together as possible into a winning electoral coalition by presenting themselves as, resistance fighters. The other thing about this, which you touched on earlier, which is kind of funny, is that this group, that kind of, mainstream American left to the center left, actually controls most of the institutions. I mean, right now they've got the president. They usually have the House of Representatives, but more than that, I mean, that's the group that entirely dominates, academia, mass media. I mean, we're all in those arenas fighting right now. I mean, secondary education. So it's really an interesting and almost cool trick from the opponent's side to be able to control the printing presses that put out the book that says you're a victim.
And Andrew Sullivan said a couple of years ago, we're all on a college campus now. To me, we're all in Leonard Bernstein's Manhattan penthouse. We're all radical chic now. With Leonard Bernstein and the Black Panthers. Will Riley, Associate Professor of Poli-Sci, Kentucky State University, author of Hate Crime Hoax, How the Left is Selling a Fake Race War. Will, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on. Bye.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper, hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Rick Borick, host of Unleash Your Wealth, talks about the importance of tax planning in retirement.
A qualified financial planner can take you through all the steps to show you every single legal way you can use to reduce and minimize your state income taxes across the board so that, again, you keep more of your money and your family keeps more of your money.
Unleash Your Wealth, Saturday at 7 a.m. and our new time at 2 p.m. here on AM 560, The Answer.
Attention entrepreneurs and growth-oriented individuals looking to learn. Multimillionaire venture capitalist John Sarasani is helping the masses with his podcast that focuses on the business community. No longer do you need to sit at work each day waiting for your cost of living to go up 3% annually. Instead, give yourself a 2,000% raise and go to work for yourself. Get all the info at 2000percentraise.com, where John shares his entertaining insight and features successful business owners, celebrities, and investor guests like Tracy Tudor from Bravo's $1 Million Listing, Darren Rovell from ESPN and Action Sports Network, and multimillionaire bodybuilding.com founder Ryan DeLuca. Go to 2000percentraise.com, get on the email list, and find podcast links, or search for 2000% Raise on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or any major podcast platform. Follow at John Sarasani on TikTok and Instagram for some quick clips of the business lessons he teaches. New informative content every week. Visit 2000percentraise.com today and start working for yourself.
Are you a driver of a Ford PowerStroke diesel engine? Tired of taking your Ford PowerStroke diesel in to be misdiagnosed or paying for repairs that don't fix the problem? Well, bring your vehicle to the diesel headquarters, Remke's Garage. The shop is equipped with state-of-the-art diagnostic equipment and highly trained technicians. Take it to the experts. Take it to Remke's Garage. Remke's Garage specializes in Ford PowerStroke, Chevy Duramax, Dodge Cummins, Mercedes Sprinter, and Isuzu diesel engines and transmission repairs. At Remke's, they'll make your vehicle repairs convenient by offering a free commercial loaner vehicle.
Remke's Garage, where you won't spend $1,000 to fix a $100 problem. Call for details and to schedule an appointment at 800-5-REMKES or visit remkesgarage.com. Remke's Garage, your diesel headquarters.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, coming up on Chicago's Morning Answer.
BlackRock and Goldman Sachs are arguing about the distribution of stocks and bonds in your portfolio. Meanwhile, they're laying off thousands of employees. We'll start there with Jim Urio.
But now into the newsroom we go. Here is Mike Scott.
Amy and Dan, 44. We've had some light rain. A lot of that has cleared out of the area already this morning. President Biden is marking Martin Luther King Jr. Day today with a speech at the National Action Network's MLK Day breakfast in D.C. The death toll from a residential building strike in Ukraine is rising. 40 have now died as a result of the Russian missile attack. Oregon Congresswoman Susanna Bonamici continues to recover at home after being struck by a car in Portland, Oregon. It happened Friday night. California's weather woes continue. Millions remain under flood alerts. Another round of rain and heavy snow today. Santa Cruz County Response Recovery Officer Director Dave Reed.
It's really been from the mountains to the sea, north to south. We've been impacted all over.
An additional 1 to 3 feet of snow is expected in the mountains. All 72 on board a passenger plane are feared dead after it went down in Nepal.
It was meant to be a routine 27-minute trip from Kathmandu to Pokhara, but crashing just a mile from its final destination, the new international airport in the popular hiking city of Pokhara.
Aviation analyst Jeff Guzzetti discusses possible reasons for the crash.
Perhaps it was a lower than prescribed airspeed that caused one of the wings to aerodynamically stall, or perhaps the airplane wasn't configured properly.
Local media reports now claim there are no survivors among the 72 on board the Yeti Airlines flight. All veterans experiencing a suicidal crisis will soon be able to access free care. The VA says effective tomorrow. All veterans can go to any VA or non-VA healthcare facility and receive treatment at no cost at all. 2 elderly people are seriously hurt following a fire in their home in Chicago's Little Italy neighborhood. It happened early yesterday. The cause is not known. Northside voters got a chance to hear from candidates running for mayor of Chicago. All 9 candidates took part in a forum last night at Lane Tech High School, including aldermen and independents campaigning last night.
We could be using ancillary officers or part-time officers, retired officers, to come take calls, for example.
Roderick Sawyer talking about how he, as alderman and Wood as mayor, improved public safety in Chicago. Bulls beat Golden State 132-118. Fighting Illini now 3-3 in the Big Ten after weekend action. They play at the Barn in Minnesota tonight. While on Sunday, Northwestern fell to the Wolverines at Chrysler Arena 85-78. The news is a service of the AM 560 Advantage where you can join today at 560theanswer.com/join. A check of traffic and weather on the way next on AM 560.
Mike Gallagher says we're jumping to conclusions again.
And right away, people were taking to social media, people are dying suddenly, don't get the vaccine. They immediately linked this cardiac event to a vaccine, the COVID vaccine, without one shred of evidence that was the case.
The Mike Gallagher Show, weekdays at 9, right before Dennis Prager at 11 on AM 560. The Answer.
Cold floors? The problem is probably down below in the basement or crawl space. Hi,
I'm Roy Spencer with Permaseal. I'm happy to say that we can now help make your basement and crawl space warmer and therefore your upstairs more comfortable with our new product, PermaFoam. We spray this insulating foam between your floor joists, which will not only increase your energy efficiency, but will also deter insects, rodents, and is mold and mildew resistant. PermaFoam can be installed in just one day and is twice as effective as the old-fashioned fiberglass bats. For over 40 years, homeowners in Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana have trusted Permaseal to make their homes healthier and more valuable. Call a contractor you can rely on. Permaseal. 800-421-SEAL. That's 800-421-7325 or visit permaseal.net.
Your best for being better, Permaseal.
Balance of Nature's fruits and vegetables in a capsule. Changing the world, one life at a time.
I'm in the medical field, and I think when you start out these things, everything from the advertisement sounds so good that you're psyched up for it to work. It's working. Anyway, I'm happy.
Balance of Nature has made a big difference. It's just one of the greatest products, and it's just so simple, and it works.
Balance of Nature is a fantastic product. You could tell it's real. You could taste it. And it gives you really good energy, and it's just right up there with rent, electric cable, like things that you have to have. I'm not cutting Balance of Nature. No, I love it.
Start your journey to better health with Balance of Nature right now. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go to balanceofnature.com for more information or to place your order. Shipping is always free. And don't forget to get 35% off your first order as a preferred customer by using discount code CHICAGO.
Inflation is nothing more than legalized theft. Hi, I'm Dr. Ron Paul, and to preserve your wealth, I highly recommend keeping physical gold in your retirement account. To learn more, text the word safeguard to 989898 to get a free info kit on gold IRAs from Birch Gold, which is the only gold IRA company I trust. So text safeguard to 989898 to request your free info kit right now.
What's for dinner? Burgers?
After last week, no thanks.
Avoiding foods due to fear of diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools? It may not be just stomach issues. It could be EPI, or exocrine pancreatic insufficiency. EPI can cause uncomfortable symptoms because it's a condition where the pancreas doesn't release enough digestive enzymes to break down food. But EPI can be managed. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor about your symptoms. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
8:40 and a check of the roads this morning. We do that, of course, in the Team Hochberg Traffic Center and a service of Whole Foods Market. It's time to dive in and jumpstart January at Whole Foods Market. Prime members get 25% off sustainable wild-caught king salmon fillets through January 17th. Midweek dinners meet a tidal wave of flavor while supplies last. Shop in-store or online. Terms, of course, apply. Kennedy outbound jammed up Nagel to Sayre. Stevenson inbound 22-355 into DuSable Lakeshore Drive. Tri-State jamming northbound between the Reagan and the outbound Eisenhower ramps. West side, Pulaski shut down due to police activity both north and southbound between Wilcox and Monroe. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast. Rain, maybe an afternoon thunderstorm, high 49. Overcast and 40 overnight. 44 at O'Hare. Next news at 9. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Woo! That real estate market in Chicago is hot.
Oh, yeah.
Hot!
Woo! Sizzling.
Sizzling.
Yes. Oh.
Do not touch. That is a hot market. Give you an example. Billionaire Ken Griffin, who absconded to Miami. Friday sold a 8,000 square foot condo
Oh my gosh! For how
on the
much?
66th floor of the Park Tower building for $11.2 million. That's easily the highest Chicago area home sale price in 2023 so far. $11.2 million for this 8,000 square foot condo he had, 66th floor of Park Tower building. 11.2. I mean, things are moving. There is one one caveat.
How much did he buy it for?
Yeah. Well, there's that footnote.
Yeah.
He bought it for $15 million in 2012.
Oh.
So 25% less than he paid for the unit a decade ago. That sounds about right, actually. And he's got some other properties to unload. And if they think a multi-billionaire is going to be spared the realities of math in Chicago, he knows it, and anybody who's paying attention knows it. He's not going to be, and he knows it. He's just divesting, and bully for him. Yeah. In October, he sold his 5-bedroom, 7,400 square foot condo on the 37th floor of the Waldorf Astoria for $10.2 million.
Okay.
Which was 1.27 below his asking price and $3 million less than he paid for it again almost a decade ago in 2014.
I wonder why he moved out.
Yeah. Losing
Get out while you can.
Losing 25%, not inflation adjusted,
Oh
so call it 35%, over a decade of holding property in Chicago. Now I know this is high end, and so this is a very rarefied universe that it can't even play here. But the story is the same because the math is similar as you move down market. Anyway, I thought that was fun because I just love the realtors' propaganda and the politicians' propaganda about prices. Oh, moving up and so on and so forth. Oh, suburbs are hot. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'll tell you what. You go long Chicago real estate and talk to me in 5 years and let me know how it's going. For more on this and other matters, pleased to be joined by Fox business analyst and proprietor of Brantz and Palatine. He is Jim Urio. Jim, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Are you taking your money out of the market and going long Chicago real estate? You picking up any of Ken Griffin's properties by chance?
No, I haven't yet. I'm accidentally long Chicago real estate over the last 10 years, and I don't really love the position particularly. But to your point before about, you said the word math. Of course it's a math equation. When mortgage rates go from 2.8 to 7, it's just the amount people can afford goes down. Now you throw in the cross currents of Chicago, and I don't know how you get into the loop. Oh, you live in the loop, but I take the blue line a couple times a week from Cumberland, and
somebody likes to gamble with his life.
I do too.
It's unbelievable. Like, there's no possible way that public transportation in this city could be in the condition it's in without some sort of intent. Nobody is that incompetent. So the city of Chicago is obviously losing people to the suburbs. The state is losing people to Florida. I assume you're coming to me from Florida right now, Dan. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a fair assumption.
That's a fair assumption. So everything bad that could happen in Chicago. And again, I've been writing about this. If you want real estate values to maintain and you want to attract business to the city of Chicago, you must immediately, with 100% of your resources, address the crime problem. For crime to have spiraled like it has, again, like the blue line, smacks of intent to me, and I don't understand. Could you explain it to me?
Well, here's the thing, Jim. Let me give you the three-pronged answer that is the answer to every question you have about Illinois or any complaint you have in particular. All right, here it goes. It's not as bad as you think.
Right.
There's a lot of blame to go around, and they're working on it.
Oh, that's right.
All right?
So well, the funny thing about this is that I got tons of blame to go around. Personally, I can start pointing fingers at a lot of public officials and wonder what the hell they're actually doing. But whatever.
Oh, no, what they're doing, I don't know if you know, Governor Pritzker, he's in Davos, Switzerland at the World Economic Forum, touting and ready for this, promoting and touting Illinois' accomplishments on the world stage.
Yeah.
I mean, what in God's name could he be talking about?
He's a great ambassador. He's a great ambassador for the state. Things are going well. Yeah.
But the thing is that, like, we can talk about this and laugh about this, but obviously from the election, there's a lot of people who believe this nonsense. And what every day it seems like a fight, just trying to slap people and say, "Do you understand what's really happening?" And Davos, what in the world could Davos possibly do to make the life better of an average American? It's absurd. They've never done anything, and all it is every one of these news stations cover this big conference because they want influence and they want access to these billionaires. We as normal people, it could probably, the only reason we should watch World Economic Forum is, like a George Carlin thing. When the word bipartisan comes up, there's an unusually large deception going on, and we're wondering how we are going to get the short end of the stick as normal. This whole thing, again, I've had a lot of coffee this morning, as you can probably tell, but I'm ready to bounce through the ceiling, I think.
All right, let me have you weigh in on this debate that's raging between BlackRock and Goldman Sachs. Talk about no white hats in this standoff. This is with respect to the classic model of managing your portfolio, 60% stocks and 40% bonds. The only problem is that the distribution had its worst calendar year since the Great Depression. BlackRock says it's an outdated model. Goldman Sachs says it isn't. Meanwhile, they're both laying off thousands of people, so what do they know? Anyway, what do you think in terms of actually people rebalancing their portfolio, thinking about this year and in the near term? Is 60-40 still a handle, or should people be thinking differently?
Well, here's my two-pronged answer. If you rewind the clock a year ago and BlackRock came out telling everyone that the 60-40 portfolio was bad, then I'd say, wow, you guys are pretty good. The fact they're coming out with that right now, okay, so the 60-40 portfolio has worked historically, except with a caveat. If stocks are going down because bonds are specifically going down, like the government is forcing bonds lower to raise interest rates to fight this massive inflation. Well, it's not like the normal situation where there's rotations. People rotate stocks to bonds, bonds to stocks. No, bonds are being pushed lower, making the actual value of stocks go down. Now, to answer the question right now, I side more with Goldman. I think that 2022 was an interesting anomaly. I think going forward, a 60-40 portfolio is probably not a bad idea. But again, if you see on the horizon this situation where the Fed will be aggressively raising rates, the Fed will stop their bond buying program. If that situation ever lines up again, it's not a hard one to identify. But I guess I would side with Goldman now.
What's your outlook for this year based on what you're seeing? I had dinner with a friend of mine who runs a pretty big business concern, and he was talking, and their credit is in great shape, but he had to renew his revolving credit line, and talking to his bank about that. And they were just talking about how business people are getting hit with significant fees on these credit lines. And the less credit worthy, the bigger the hit. But he seemed to take from that banks are not expecting good times to be in the offing, and so they're sort of they're making it up with these fee arrangements with respect to existing customers.
Yeah, I think I'm old enough to remember the 70s, and standard of living was much, much different. I mean, I believe we had 3 cars at our house. None of them actually worked, and we just bring parts and duct tape from one car to get one running. I see a return to a much lower standard of living. And the reason being is that, so just think of where the Fed and the federal government, this being at loggerheads right now. The Fed wants to be done raising rates. The federal government keeps doing everything it can to make that more difficult with profligate spending and being completely irresponsible on their end. In the last 6 months alone, passed 3 different bills that are extremely irresponsible in spending, inflation fueling. So rates can't particularly go lower because of the government, but they can't particularly go higher because of what you just mentioned. So many people who are having to roll into new credit at much, much higher levels. Not just government, but tons of people have revolving debt. So when that happens too, so that's going to be a drag on the economy. But the Fed can't lower rates to meet that because the government still keeps spending money stupidly, and it creates demand, and not demand in the right places. It always kind of shoots off to idiotic places, like we saw in them inflating real estate bubbles pretty much twice now. So what I see is a recession, or something that looks like a recession that could possibly last 2 or 3 years. And until we can figure out energy policy number one on the list and make energy cheap for people, that won't be the thing that can bring us out of this, and we're moving in the opposite direction of that right now, obviously. But the thing that could bring us out of that is, we're going more toward nuclear power, going more toward making energy cheap for everybody. And if we can do that, that's how we come out of it, but it's going to take years, in my opinion.
So inflation's we're not going to see 3% in 2024. We're looking at price stability at 5%. 5.5%?
I would say I would hope 4%. The thing's really interesting about the latest round of CPI too. Did you see that food and energy are the two highest things? So food and energy are also the two least responsive to rate hikes, unless those rate hikes are going to completely destroy the whole economy with a massive recession. Those things are very, very sensitive to regulation. And guess what's happening? More and more regulation. Just today, Oxfam at that stupid Davos conference started talking about how there should be a windfall tax on food producers globally. So we want more food, yet they're going to punish entrance into that market. So to think that they're arguing against our best interests, I think, is a very easy argument to make. But those things, remember, so food and energy stays high because of stupid government, and those are the things that actually people buy every day. So you don't buy a used car every day, and you don't buy a house every day. So the fact that those things are coming down in price is all well and good, but that doesn't really affect the average Americans much.
So, Jim Murio, I follow you on Twitter, and you tweeted something yesterday. Boston is one of my favorite cities. Love the people, culture, and history. That said, I plan on mercilessly ridiculing the moronic MLK statue or whatever it's supposed to be. What kind of reaction have you gotten from that tweet?
I got lots of good reactions. What is going on? I saw someone tweet today, and it was the funniest thing. He goes, I move that we shut down modern art for 3 weeks to figure out what the hell is going on. I almost spit my coffee out. But it's so ridiculous. And it's so, the part of it is commissioning artwork in public spots. If you look at Renaissance artists who tried to draw people in with sheer beauty, and now it's like another level of this intellectual snobbery in modern art. Like, you put this out here, and we're supposed to look at it and say, oh, that's beautiful. Oh, you don't understand why it's beautiful? Oh, it's because you don't understand art. And there's an element of that in all this. And this is public money that goes for these things. When I go along the Chicago lakefront, when you start to get close to the football stadium, there's this one piece of work that's like rusted metal that's all twisty. Yep. What is that even all about?
I don't know. I stare at it all the time and wonder the same thing.
Hey, you're a financial analyst. Stay in your lane.
No,
Make hamburgers. You're a financial analyst. Just stay in your lanes.
Hold it, though. I can make this financial.
Leave the art to the woke.
This is government money.
Yeah, well, no kidding.
$10 million
Actually,
for that bad boy.
We mentioned earlier in the show an op-ed over at Compact Magazine by Seneca Scott, who's actually a cousin of Coretta Scott King, and his commentary: the sculpture is an especially egregious example of the woke machine's callousness and vanity. So the reviews are coming in, and they're pretty decidedly against the
Well, you know what I want to be, though? I would love to be the Boston government officials who commissioned this artwork, who were standing there when the sheet came off, and were like, yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, right. Right. You have to look at it from this angle to see.
Like,
now do you see it? Now do you? Jim Murio, financial analyst, Fox Business, proprietor of Brandt's Restaurant in Palatine. Jim, thanks as always.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy on the AM 560 The Answer mobile app. Just text the word app to 64636 to download the app today.
The following is a paid political announcement.
Why not Willie Wilson for mayor of Chicago? The criminals won't like Willie Wilson in the mayor's office. Fighting crime is Willie Wilson's first priority. The city isn't safe. The city streets, the CTA, are not safe. Willie Wilson knows that personally.
My son was murdered. I know the anger, and I know the pain.
Willie Wilson is ready to take on the criminals. Finally, Chicago, do it right. Willie Wilson for mayor.
It happens every year. Winter. Delivering and receiving supplies and getting people where they need to go can be impossible. Keeping your business's doors and gates working properly to keep out the extreme weather is a major concern. Your business can't afford a loss of income or productivity. Be ready. Call Industrial Door Company of Chicago, Inc. for your commercial door maintenance and security tune-up now. You can't always plan when your doors break down, and it always seems to come at the least convenient time. Industrial Door Company will ensure your doors, grills, gates, and dock equipment are working to specification and give you advice on how to increase the life of your doors. See a range of products and services at industrialdoor.com. Call 847-258-5620. Their team will be there before the extreme cold weather causes financial losses for your company and assist in your time of need. Since 1982, the Industrial Door Company of Chicago, Inc. takes care of your doors so you can take care of business. Service and installation positions available. Muscular work for thinkers. Apply at industrialdoor.com.
Guys, a lot of people talking about testosterone, but do your homework and be sure to go to a provider you can trust. I recommend my friends at Low T Center. It's where I've gotten my levels checked the past 8 years. Low T Center exclusively specializes in men's wellness. They check all your levels, not just your testosterone, and determine the cause of any symptoms you're having and whether you're a candidate for low T or something else like low thyroid or sleep apnea. Typically, their annual health assessment is completely covered by health insurance, and they check everything, including PSA, your prostate levels, as well as thyroid, liver and kidney function, cholesterol, glucose levels, and more. Low T Center has affordable and convenient options for your treatment, including monitored self-inject treatment that ships directly to you each month, so there's no need to come to the center each week. Make your health a priority this new year and schedule your annual health assessment at Low T Center today. It's covered by most health insurance or less than $100 cash pay. Visit lowtcenter.com to book your appointment online. That website again, lowtcenter.com. Tell them Dan Prof sent you when you do. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare.
Relief Factor, pain relief that's natural, pain relief that works, and pain relief that attacks the source of the pain. That's the experience of tens of thousands of Americans who are taking Relief Factor right now. See their incredible video endorsements at relieffactor.com and then order your 3-week quick starter pack for just $19.95. That's less than $1 a day. Find out if it can work for you like it works for me by ordering your 3-week quick starter pack today. relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Be the next success story.
Angie's List is now Angie, and we've heard a lot of theories about why.
I thought it was an eco move. Fewer words, less paper.
No, it was so you could say it faster.
No, it's to be more iconic.
Must be a tech thing. But those aren't quite right. It's because now you can compare upfront prices, book a service instantly, and even get your project handled from start to finish.
Sounds easy.
It is, and it makes us so much more than just a list. Get started at Angie.com. That's ANGI, or download the app today.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, thanks for making us part of your morning, and we want to especially thank Justin Kosick, our technical producer, and Quinn McCarthy, our executive producer. We're back here bright and early tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. Now into the newsroom we go. The one and only Mike Scott.
2 elderly people seriously hurt in a Little Italy blaze. Police investigating the fatal shooting of a teen in Des Plaines. Bulls dominate the second half in a win over the Warriors. And rain today. WIND Chicago News Time, 9 o'clock.
Republicans won't get what they want. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. They won't get to see who's been to President Biden's Delaware home, where we found out this weekend even more classified documents were found from his time as vice president.
We are learning there are no visitor logs chronicling who comes and goes from the president's house in Wilmington. An official at the White House counsel's office is telling me that, like every president in modern history, a personal residence is personal. In terms of what Republicans on the Hill are asking for, a record of who may have been in the Wilmington residence and potentially had access to the areas where these documents were found, it does not appear that exists.
Fox's Peter Ducey at the White House. In Nepal, they're searching for a few more plane crash victims. 69 bodies found so far. There were 72 people on board. Crews have recovered black box recorders to try to find out what caused the crash.